All right, good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. How's everyone doing today? Awesome, very good. Welcome to our Issachar prep day. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakfast out there and got some caffeine and got a little bit of sugar in there to keep everybody awake. I've got the thermostat turned down low so that you guys won't fall asleep on me this morning. So when I was in Bible school, the pastor used to say that he kept the meat fresh in the meat locker. They kept the thermostat at 68 in Bible school. We froze to death every day in class. But they said they liked, for us not to fall asleep. So, all right, well, we're glad to have everybody here with us this morning. We want to welcome you to Kingdom Life Church. If this is your very first time visiting here, we want to welcome you here this morning and thank you for coming out on a Saturday morning for this important subject matter today. This is an emergency readiness course today that we're going to be teaching you guys from 9:45 till about noon. We are going to have a question and answer session at the end. So as questions pop into your mind, you might want to pull out your phone or your tablet or whatever and write down some notes. Write down your questions, and then when we get to the very end today, we'll answer all the questions at one time. Your questions may get answered as we go along by different presenters. We're going to be talking about subjects such as choosing your mindset, gardening, dehydrating, preserving food, canning food, mylar bags, communications, satellite phones, gas generators, propane storage, water storage, car generators, solar ovens, gold and silver, alternative forms of currency, and even raising chickens. And no, we did not bring any chickens in here today, but we do have pictures of Anita's chickens, and I'm sure you'll be excited to see pictures of her babies. So we will have that in here as well. Our main goal today, our main takeaway, is that you know what your emergency preparation plan is. We want every family to know what is my plan of action if we have a natural disaster like a tornado, like we just had recently with all the storms. If we have, the electric grid goes down like we had during Snowmageddon, or God forbid, if we have some type of a national emergency. Do you know what your family's plan is? And you don't want to be building the wings while you're flying the aircraft. You want the wings on the aircraft before you take off. So you don't want to be coming up with your emergency plan while we're in the middle of a national emergency. You want to have your plan done before we have a national emergency or a natural disaster. So our main goal today is for you to know what your plan of action is going to be. For instance, who is your go-to person in the event of an emergency? Do you guys know exactly where you're going to meet up? Let's say, God forbid, cell towers went down for some reason because China finally initiated their malware in our communication system, or there was an EMP attack and our electronics go down, and you can't use your cell phone. If you haven't heard from your go-to person, whether that's a family or friend, do you have a meeting place within 48 hours that you know that we're going to this house within 48 hours? If I can't call somebody, this is where we're going to meet up. We've already predetermined where we're going to go. It's kind of like, when you used to have those fire drills with your family and your kids were little. Hey, if the house catches on fire, this is where the family meets up outside the house, and this is how you get out of the house. It's kind of a fire drill scenario, knowing exactly where you're going to meet up and who you're going to meet with and where you're going to go. So that's the main goal of today's emergency preparation class, is to know what your plan is in the event of an emergency. All these other things that we'll be teaching on, these are just ideas for you, and you do not have to implement all of these ideas. And so do not feel overwhelmed of like, oh my goodness, I've got to do every single thing they talked about in that class, or I'm not prepared. That's just not true. Preparation looks completely customized for every family because we don't all live the same way. We don't all live in the same type of a house, or some people live in townhomes, some people live in condos, some people live in single family residences, some people live in apartments, some people live by themselves, some people live with family members or a roommate. We all have a different living situation, and so don't feel like you've got to take every single idea idea and implement it, or you're not prepared. That's just not true. If you can take away 2 or 3 good ideas today that you say, hey, that applies to me, that applies to my situation, and I can use that, that's what you want to take away today. So whatever hits you today as this is a great idea, I can use this, that's what you want to pay attention to. And the rest of it, you can just kind of either ignore it, or maybe your friend or neighbor will take that idea and run with it. This is being live streamed on Daniel Nation PBC, which is our YouTube page. It's also being live streamed on our Facebook page and our Twitter page. The handles are identical. It's Daniel Nation PBC, which stands for Public Benefit Corporation. The video will be available after the class today. And if you would like to go back and review the material, you just could go out to our YouTube page, our Facebook page, or our Twitter page at Daniel Nation PBC. That's where you go. Also, if you want an email of any of the handouts, the PowerPoints, the things that you visually see up on the screen today, if you want any of that material, we can email that information to you. There is a sign-up sheet that you saw at the front door when you came in. If you signed up when you came in, and I have your email address, then I will email everybody in the class all of the handouts so that you will have copies of that for your records. So if you did not sign up, whenever you take a break later, go to the sign up table at the front door and make sure that I have your name and email information. So before I bring up our first presenter this morning, I want to couch this by saying, number one, it's easy to get into a state of fear when you're talking about preparation. And the reason why it's easy to get into a state of fear is because we as humans fear what we don't know. We fear the unknown. And when you're talking about an emergency or a natural disaster or a national disaster, what does that look like? Well, nobody can predict it. Nobody can predict what a disaster might look like. Could it look like the stock market failing in 1929? Yes. Could it look like the electric grid going down? Yes. Could it look like communications going down? Yes. Could it look like a terrorist attack? Yes. Could it look like a food shortage? Yes. Could it look like during COVID when Target had nothing on the shelves and Costco had nothing on the shelves because people bought out all the toilet paper? Yes. All the above. I mean, it's impossible to predict what an emergency might look like. So the best plan of action in an emergency, in my opinion, is to have a 30-day plan. Trying to plan 6 months, 9 months, 12 months in advance for Armageddon is almost impossible for any of us unless you truly live off the grid in the Ozarks with our friend Clay Nash on 400 acres, and you've got your own water, you got your own electricity, you got your own everything. Unless you're Clay Nash, it is impossible to plan for 12 months in advance, okay? Most of us live in the suburbs or the city. We can't plan for 12 months, but we can all plan for 30 days. Can you plan for 30 days of water, 30 days of food, 30 days of having stuff in your freezer, 30 days of having things handy if you were not able to go to a grocery store and get it? So today, I want you to have a 30-day mindset, because in an emergency of this magnitude, within 30 days, somebody is going to help us, okay? The National Guard, okay? God help us. Hopefully not the United Nations and the WHO. We don't want their help. Y'all can stay overseas. We don't need your help. But, somebody within 30 days in Texas, with Governor Abbott being our governor, hopefully, and Dan Patrick being our lieutenant governor, and hopefully Dade Phelan gone as the speaker, and having Dr. Tom Oliverson or Shelby Slauson. But, with those folks in power, hopefully somebody will come rescue us within 30 days here in Texas, and we will have some assistance from our government. So I don't think you need to plan for 6 months. I think you need to plan for 30 days. If you were not able to get immediate relief or immediate help, are you able to sustain yourself or pool resources with your neighbor, your family member, or somebody that is your emergency go-to person, that together butter, you have a plan where I'm going to buy the peanut butter and you're going to buy the jelly, right? I've got 30 days of peanut butter, you got 30 days of jelly. We come together, we got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich type of scenario. Like, you need to start thinking teamwork, because teamwork makes the dream work, okay? So start thinking, who's my buddy? Because I can't buy everything that I need for myself, but if this person has the satellite phones or the radios, and this person has the water, and this person has the gasoline, and this person has the generator, and you can pool your resources together and you can get through this, right? We can help each other out. And if we had a true national crisis, it would go back to neighbors helping neighbors. Do you even know your neighbors? Have you met your neighbors? Do you know who lives next door to you? Because in a real national emergency like 9/11, people started helping each other out. You know, even during COVID, people that weren't afraid helped each other out as well. So, you know, we have to start thinking, how do I help my neighbor? The last thing I want to say is this: prayer is always the key for any crisis. And last night I stayed up watching an interview with Tucker Carlson and the president of El Salvador. And if you've not watched the interview of Tucker Carlson and the president of El Salvador, phenomenal interview. I was so inspired. It's 1 hour in length. I stayed up last night late watching the whole thing. I couldn't turn it off. It just gripped me, because the president of El Salvador, who's a conservative, by the way, just cleaned out MS-13 from the whole country. Completely eradicated El Salvador of MS-13. And El Salvador used to be the third most dangerous country in the world. Actually, it was the most dangerous country in the world, 3 times more dangerous than Haiti, which is one of the most dangerous countries in the world, 3 times more dangerous than Haiti. And now El Salvador is safer than America. It is now safer than America because all the MS-13 gang members are behind bars. And I'm talking tens of thousands have been arrested. And so Tucker Carlson said, how did you do it, Mr. President? How did you do it? And he goes, well, do you want the official answer or the unofficial answer? And Tucker goes, I want both. And he goes, well, the official answer is we put together a phased plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We doubled our army. We empowered our army to go fight crime. So our national army became our police force, and they arrested them all and put them in jail. That's the official story. But the unofficial story, he goes, is it was a miracle. He goes, because when I became president, he goes, this problem was unsolvable. It was too big for us. We're one of the poorest countries in the world. And we didn't have the resources or the people to arrest MS-13. And he says MS-13 was killing people in the middle of the night. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, we met in my office with my cabinet. And he says, we began to pray. And he says, we prayed 5 times that night, 5 different times through the morning hours. Me and my cabinet were on our faces before God, praying to God to help us. And he says, God gave us a supernatural strategy on how to round up MS-13 and put them behind bars. And they were able to do it. And he goes, you know what happened? Now, people who left El Salvador and fled to the United States are now moving back to El Salvador because El Salvador is safer than the United States of America. Now our economy is booming because we can't keep up with housing demand, and construction now is 30% of our GDP. So it has solved the economic crisis and the crime crisis because we depended on a supernatural God to show us the way. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. How are we going to get through a crisis? Prayer. How are we going to make it through a disaster? Faith. We are people of faith. We are people of conviction and belief. You always make it through with God. You got to put God in the driver's seat of any problem, and God will show us the way. So with that, I want to invite our very first, actually, let's pray. Let's pray first, and then I'll invite our first speaker. Father, we come before you today in the mighty name of Jesus, and we say there is no problem that is too big that our God cannot solve that problem. There is no crisis too great that you cannot intervene. There's no situation or circumstance, even in this nation, which is on a downward slide, there is no problem that your hand cannot intervene and fix the problem. And so, God, we come to you in prayer today, and we ask you to intervene upon America's behalf. We ask you to intervene and to arrest the evildoers who would want to destroy the foundations of this nation to make us a communist, globalist, one world order system type nation, oh God, a banana republic. Father, we ask you to deliver us from this evil agenda. We ask you to deliver us. We cry out for a Moses delivering type of anointing. We ask you to set us free from Pharaoh, from the taskmasters, and from those that want to destroy our people and destroy our government. Father, we ask you today to come and deliver us from this evil and set us free. And Lord, let us be the remnant who hears the voice of God and hears the sound of the Lord and issues the word of the Lord to the nation and says, this is the anointing of Issachar. We know what we should do. So today I pray for an Issachar anointing to come on this group, that we would know the times and the seasons we are in, but also we would know what America should do. Give us that presence and anointing today. Everything we do is unto your honor and glory in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Okay, our first speaker this morning is none other than my mother, Kathy Burden, and she's going to come and talk to us about choosing your mindset.
Okay. All right. Are we going to have a clock? Is it going to count? All right, so I'm going to just share briefly when in 1960, the biggest crisis we were facing was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I can still remember how we prepared and how our families were preparing and how we as children had to prepare in order to be safe if something like that should happen. So thank God we're not facing that this morning. But I do want to share a couple of things with you about our mindset and how important this is, because as you prepare in the natural, the physical, this right here and your spirit man is just as important. In Jeremiah 17:7, it says, blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, in whose hope the Lord is, for he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. I believe that's the season we're going into. We're going to yield fruit. The Bible says that the person that prepares will be ready. And so we're going to be a people that are prepared. So we prepare now, not when disaster comes. I think we've seen a couple of weeks ago how unprepared we were when the storms hit. So the decisions that we're making now and the preparations we make in the emotional realm will determine a victorious mindset when the thing happens. So how do I become emotionally strong? That's what we're talking about right now, our mindset, being emotionally strong. Well, number one, I'm going to give you about 20 things. So number one is you got to settle it now. Who do you trust in? Some of you today are trusting in an election that's coming. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's in the room. I can tell you that. If this person wins, we're going to be okay. But if this person wins, we're doomed. If you're trusting in that, you're already defeated. You can't trust in a system and you can't trust in a man. You can only trust in God. The question I have to ask you today is, can you accept his timing and the answers that he brings to you? That's the problem in trust. See, we all say we trust God, but then when it doesn't come the way we want it, we don't like it. Number two, be led by the Holy Spirit. Don't be led by what you're seeing in the natural realm. I would lose my mind today if I were paying attention to what I see in the natural. I would go in my house, lock the door, and never come out again because it is so frightening what I'm seeing. But I've got to see what God is saying and what God is speaking. That's where I need to be seated today. Number three, find scriptures that you can stand on, ones that you believe and have a revelation of, and then trust his promises. Now, did he say, I'll never leave you or forsake you? Did he say it or did he not? Okay. I'm asking, just asking. It's kind of early in the morning for a message so strong. Number four, find a way to be grateful. Learn to be thankful. I am thankful for every day. The first thing I say every morning when I wake up is, thank you, God, that my heart is beating today. Thank you that I have food in my house. I have shelter. Learn to be grateful, because we live in an ungrateful society. Number five, Praise your way out of depression and oppression. When you're exalting Him, guess what? Your mind is fixed on Him and not yourself. And there's a lot of people that are oppressed and depressed today. Let me tell you something. If President Trump wins, praise the Lord. If he doesn't win, praise the Lord. I'm okay either way. Some of you are not going to be okay. You need to settle this now. You need to settle it now. Number 6, think on things that are pure, lovely, good report. That you need to begin to think about good things. Because I plan to prosper in the middle of this. Everybody else may go broke. I'm not going broke. Number 7, limit your news intake. And I'm going to say to you, Christians in the room, limit your prophecy intake too. You listen to too many prophets telling you too many different things. I listen to the prophets that all say the same thing. And when I get 12 prophets and they're not saying the same thing, I'm going to cut some of them out. You need to limit some of your prophecy intake as well as your news intake. I should get an amen on that. I'm feeling really, I'll let it go. Number 8, create a support group of strong, like-minded people who can encourage you. I do not want to be around somebody that is telling me that the wolf is at the door and we're going to lose everything. I'm not going to listen to that. I don't want that garbage around me. So create a support group of strong, like-minded people who can encourage one another. Number 9, prioritize relationships. If you're a person that likes to isolate, you are not going to do well in a crisis where you're isolated because there's so much fear and everybody is so scared. So you need to find and prioritize relationships. Number 10, focus on the things you can control. What can I control right now? A 30-day plan. What can I control right now? Who I'm going to be in relationship with. What can I control right now? What I choose to put in my mind. What can I not control? What our government's going to do. What the outcome's going to be in November. I can't control these things. Why would I spend my time focused on that? It's just going to drag me down and cause me to be depressed. Here we go. Number 11, avoid negative people. If you're negative, don't come around me. I cannot receive any more negative reports. Can I just tell you that? I've lost 2 major elections in the last 10 days, both of them highly invested in, and it's been very hard. And I cannot be around a bunch of negative people. And I can't let go of those elections until I see what God is going to do with it. See, we give up too quick, folks. When something bad happens, we give up right away and say, oh, well, here we go, 4 more years of this. No, it's not 4 more years. It is time to fight, folks. It's time to step up and fight. It is time to fight. All right, number 12, don't withdraw and isolate. We already said that. Number 13, set realistic goals. What are realistic goals? Whatever they are for you. Get up in the morning. There's a goal. Take a shower. Call somebody on the phone. How many in this room have ever been through something that was really, unless you've been to war, how many in this room been to war? Not one person. Okay, so I'm going to be real careful there, but let me just say this. If something should come in the form of a major upset that's not domestic, disaster related, but it's related by upset people fighting in the streets, whatever, you're going to have some goals for how you're going to function. Yep. You can't sit around in the bed and cover up your head and hope it's going to be okay. You see, you're deciding right now how you're going through this. If you don't decide right now how you're going through it, you're not going to get through it. You'll be defeated. You don't wait till the storm comes. You prepare before the storm comes and hope it never comes. And that's what we're talking about this morning. So number 14, have a daily routine. Whatever you do on a daily basis, you need to continue to do it no matter what is going on in the world, whether it's a disaster or whether it's something else. Number 15, develop a growth mindset instead of survival mindset. You're either an overcomer or you are not. And if you're planning to just survive, you've already probably going backwards. We have got to think with a growth mindset. Let me tell you something. There are a lot of people that came out of the Great Depression wealthy. There's a lot of people that have been through a lot of economic slumps in this country that became multimillionaires. So you got to think different if you're going to have that right mindset. Number 16, practice being calm. Breathing techniques. Now that is not new age stuff. This is a proven fact. I work with people that are traumatized every day, and we teach them about breathing. You've got to learn how to breathe, because if you don't know how to catch your breath, you're just going to be doing shallow breathing, which causes all kinds of physical problems in your body. So you're going to have to learn how to breathe in the middle of this. Number 17, know what you are going through is only temporary. You're going to come out to the other side. No matter what happens, whether it's a disaster, whether it's a war, whether it's a skirmish, whatever it is, we're coming out to the other side because we're resilient people. He made us that way. All right, number 18, your attitude will determine your success. It'll also determine your altitude. And if you're down here looking at the news, I mean, it makes me want to shoot myself. Can I just be honest? When I look at the news, I just want to shoot myself. I mean, I can't listen to it. I don't care who's doing what to who and who's running. I could care less. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just being honest with you. So your attitude's going to determine your success. Number 19, establish regular communication with God and a close friend, someone who will tell you the truth. Someone who will tell you the truth. Number 20, enter his rest, walk and abide in peace. And the last one but not least, every person should have a buddy system. If you are single and live alone, you must have a buddy system. If communication goes down, how are you going to connect? You cannot go through this on your own.
All right. Give my mom a big hand. That was awesome. Now, I know that was like drinking from a fire hydrant, so all of that was recorded on the live stream. Where is the live stream located? At Daniel Nation PBC. You guys have got it. Okay, on YouTube. You can go back and review all of that. Okay, next up is gardening with Carla Sheave. Carla has a green thumb, and she's going to share her pearls of wisdom with us, and we're going to have a 10-minute countdown clock on the back. So just Jackson's going to work that for us. Please give Carla a warm welcome this morning.
Okay, well, Bob and I are from Nebraska, and we were successful gardening in ground in Nebraska, but Texas heat, it made us go, okay, we need something that's movable, and so we've gone to container gardening, and if you look up at the pictures there, some of the containers are bigger, so they're harder to move. That one I can move, it's got kale in it. Show the next one. The one on the far right, we can't move because it doesn't have a bottom, but the other two, those are zucchini in there. It's a tomato plant that's actually, what do you call that, Bob? That container, drain tile. It's drain tile. So a caution I have for you, if you're going to get started in gardening, be careful how much you spend, because I get angry when I see the prices they're putting on stuff. So I started a lot of tomatoes and some flowers and basil and parsley from seed this year. And this was a good trick if you want to start something from seed, you can get these little kits and baby them along. I'm telling you, tomato seeds are tiny. I used a tweezers to get them in there. So this greenhouse starting kit was awesome. The other thing you have to do if you're starting something from seed, you're probably going to have them inside. So I borrowed a grow light, so it had 24/7 light, and then I blew a fan on them periodically, because if they're too wimpy, they're just going to fold over. And so they say before you can plant them in the ground, you really have to harden them. So it's quite a process. It's therapeutic though, if you want to get started with gardening. If you haven't gardened before, I'd encourage you to grow something that you like a lot and then get started. And again, don't spend a lot of money. If you can recycle some containers like we did, Bob's in construction, so we've had a lot of 5-gallon buckets. You need to drill holes in the bottom so that they can drain. And another trick about container gardening that I love is the fact that, like I bought this late season when it was very discounted, okay? It was a plant that the nursery hadn't sold. I kept it over the winter, and so it's doing great now. This is my best producer. It's a pepper plant. So again, you've got to have a place where you can pull them in. I at times had this in the garage when it got really cold. I think it came in the house in our back area. So just be realistic about what you can take care of so you don't get frustrated. The most successful plants that we've had here in Texas, Swiss chard. You got another one? Yeah, that's our Swiss chard in there. And you can see I recycled an old aluminum container there. And I actually had a previous crop of Swiss chard that I think I kept for at least 3 years. So I kept them through ice storms even by just covering them in the winter. So that stuff's great. And I did buy those plants to start them. And that's a marigold that's in there. It's a big deal to fight the pests here. And so marigolds are something that attract bugs rather than them attacking your plants because they're bright colored. And they kind of put out a smell, so that's also repellent. And I love marigolds, so that's something you might invest in to put in with some of your plants. So Swiss chard has been super successful for us. Big win this year. One of my funnest successes I've ever had in gardening was growing potatoes. And I took potatoes from the house, a couple of them that had sprouted eyes. So I didn't even buy the seed potatoes. And so we got, I didn't have a big container to put them in, so I didn't plant a lot, but we got a couple meals out of that, and I've just replanted again because I had some more potatoes that grow eyes. So that's a way to get started without spending a lot of money. Although, again, a caution, it's kind of frustrating how much even the potting soil will cost. So we have some animals so we can get fertilizer that helps. It was in a container that, like the round black one. So it was about this big around. I planted them when it was still really cold, and so I put them 4 inches deep and actually had to cover them a few times. This time it's warmer, so I didn't put them as deep. So you can ask me in about 4 weeks how they're doing on that. Zucchini and Italian squash do well also, and that's something you plant from the seed that you'll just want to buy the seeds. What you have to watch out for later in the year are squash bugs. And man, they are nasty. So I try to do all organic and not put anything on them. So we'll see. They tend to come later in the year. Another thing, you plant from seeds straight into a container, and that's what you can, just a 5-gallon bucket will work in, is green beans. And they tend to do well. You know, and of course, it depends on what the weather's like too. So things haven't sprouted a whole lot this year because we've had so much rainy weather. But that reminds me, if you can collect rainwater to water your plants, that's a good thing. So if there's a place where there's water running off your roof, that's great. Bob hooked up, we have a big barrel underneath. We just undid one of our downspouts to collect the rainwater. So to me, that's a way better thing. Well, for one thing, you're not having to run your tap, but it's better water. Some companion plants to deter pests, some herbs like oregano. I've got peppermint in with one of my zucchinis, and I've got lemon balm in the other. And I've seen the lemon balm getting nibbled on, so I'm thinking that that's helping. And then I already mentioned marigolds. Coffee grounds, I've just read, are supposed to be a deterrent for mosquitoes. So that's another trick. I'd say pray for bees. If the bees aren't around, you can self-pollinate. tomato plants and zucchini. I'm having to do that with my zucchini right now. And something else that's awful to watch out for, when you grow tomatoes, you may get tomato worms. They're hornworms. They are creepy looking things right out of a science fiction movie. And I get so mad at them, I just grab them and, yeah. You don't let them live, but you got to catch them fast because they can eat a lot really fast. Tomato leaves, if you grow them, they don't like to be splashed on even, so you need to be careful to water at the base. And Kim asked me about okra, so I called a friend. Bob and I are Northerners. We don't like okra. So, okay. Again, that's something you plant from seed. He said if you want it to sprout sooner, you can actually soak the seed for a couple days. You plant it about 2 inches deep, but it likes hot weather. So that's something you could still get going on. So again, we're coming in later in the season, so a lot of places do have their plants on sale. And as far as tools go, this was a starter kit. From here, I moved them into these little cups, and these cups could go directly into the ground. So that's been something that I utilize for tomato plants. And I tend to always wear gloves just to protect. And then these are just some hand tools that are really handy to work the soil. But again, look for them on sale. Linda Good is an expert at finding stuff on sale. If you'd have a chance to go to an estate sale, that might be where you could pick up some pots. Otherwise, go to a nursery and see if they give away even their tree containers. So just watch for stuff that people are throwing away, or, pardon me? Oh, why don't you mention that? Because my time's kind of up, so. And I'll be happy to answer questions. Mark Cassey is more like a farmer. He plants in the ground, but he's got a lot of tricks on his garden, so you can ask him stuff. And then Linda Good has started a lot of stuff too this year. But she told me last night it's not producing real well. I think it's a lot of, we need more sunlight right now, but we're getting it. So, yay. Gardening is good for you. It's therapeutic. Even if you don't get a good crop, it's good to play in the dirt. It's healthy.
Thank you, Carla. Give it up for Carla Sheave. That was awesome. So there you go, Carla. What I like about Carla's presentation is that, Carla is planting basically kind of on a pot level. You've got Linda, who kind of is doing hydropods and even starting off even smaller. And then you got Mark Kissey, who's actually farming land. So you've got a whole spectrum of what scale you want to garden, and you've got great resources. Mark Kissey, raise your hand. He's going to present later. So if you're looking at planting a bigger crop, you want to talk to Mark. If you're looking at, what Carla is doing, talk to Carla, and then Linda's going to be next. But if you want to look at getting a hydropod machine and starting off with just the seed form, growing indoors inside your house, Linda can talk to you about hydropods.
Yeah, real quick. So plants like morning sun, afternoon sun, they need to be protected from that kind of heat. So again, that's a thing why I like the movable stuff, especially when we get into a really hot, plus 100 degree temperatures, then I can find a cooler spot to put stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. Okay, next up is Linda Good, and Linda is going to talk about dehydrating and preserving food. And so please give it up for Linda.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I love dehydrating food because it's not just an emergency preparedness, it's a lifestyle. It's been going on for thousands of years, and I'm hopefully going to give you some tips that anybody can do it. So I got interested in it a few years ago, and I purchased a dehydrator. And it's right here, which I'm going to show you. This is not an infomercial. So there are many out there. In fact, being the bargain person that I am, on Nextdoor, I saw in Anna yesterday, somebody was giving one away. So you might want to look on there. So anyway, they run around $100 or so. The reason I love a dehydrator is because it doesn't heat your house up. And especially in summers in Texas, you don't want to do that. And it's a very low energy. And when you dehydrate foods in a dehydrator, it takes hours and hours. So if you say, well, gosh, I don't have the budget for $100, or I don't want a big bulky thing on my countertop, you don't have to do that. You can use your oven, because dehydrating foods is at a very low temperature, so you can use your oven. And thousands of years ago, they didn't have the oven, so what did they use? They used the sun. So you can actually use it outside. Well, the disadvantages of those two things, obviously, is the oven is hot, and it'll heat your house up. Maybe in the winter, it doesn't really matter. But if it's in the sun, then you have the pesky bugs that may be interested in what you're trying to dehydrate. What can you dehydrate? Almost anything. You can dehydrate liquids, you can dehydrate fresh food, you can dehydrate frozen food, you can dehydrate almost anything. And that's what I love about it. So I picked up some apples the other day, and I used my dehydrator. It took about 10 hours. And I just sliced them and put some cinnamon on them. That's it. There's nothing else. And I stuck them in here in these trays. So this, the machine will give you, it's easy. That's another reason why I like it. The machine will give you the temperature, it'll give you the time, and it's gonna shut off when it's done. And you just check it. So inside, we have metal trays. The metal trays are gonna be for bigger items like meat. So I've made beef jerky, which is amazing in your house. Oh, it smells so good. And I've made salmon jerky. If you have something a little smaller, oops, I didn't get that in there right. You put this little tray on top, and that's what I use oftentimes with fruits and even frozen vegetables. I'll get a big bag at Sam's or Costco of frozen mixed vegetables, and you just roll them out on the tray, you stick it in there, and then you have this big bag that is decompressed to small. And you can use that in anything, soups, whatever. Then I have these. These are silicone trays, and these have a lip on them. So these are good for things like fruit leather. So if your kids like fruit roll-ups, this is awesome. I made my first fruit roll-ups the other day, and they're in here, and I made these with canned peaches. So I took the canned peaches and I put them in the blender, and I got them all, pureed, and I spread it out here, and it was about 10 hours or so. And then I peeled it off, I laid it on some parchment paper and cut them and just rolled them up. You have to tie them with some kind of string. I just use burlap to keep it together, but that's another thing that you can do with the dehydrator. So another thing that I really love with the dehydrator is right in here. I know you can't really see it well, but who can guess what this is? I know you know what it is. I told you last night. So the other year, I had a huge crop of tomatoes. I am not a tomato lover. I don't like them. I don't like the texture, but I like them in things. So I took my tomatoes and I dehydrated them. And this is what you can do with fruits or vegetables, even milk. I mean, if you think about this, you dehydrate all of the liquid out of it so it's very crispy, okay? Then you stick it in a food processor or a blender, and you grind it down into a powder. So I'm thinking, and I've used some of this, I'm thinking this was about 20 tomatoes. And so it grinds down very small. Well, what am I going to do with this? You take out about a tablespoon and you mix a little water and you've got tomato paste. And let me tell you, it tastes way better than what's in the can. And then you add a little bit more and you got tomato sauce. So that's an idea. And then this is for food preservation. So I don't know if you remember the trend a few years ago at Christmas time when you got these jars full of soup mixes or anything like that. So I printed off some recipes for soup mixes that I thought I would like. What can I add to it? You can get the vegetable broth or the coconut milk or whatever it was. This happens to be a coconut curry soup mix. Now, I made this in October of 2021. And you're thinking, ew. Well, no, not ew, because I've preserved it. How did I do that? In a mason jar, what you can do with any dried goods. So I didn't dehydrate this. This is just layered soup mix. You can either use a food saver, which I didn't do, and YouTube is my friend because I learned lots of skills from that. And the lady that I was listening to, she said she had the best results from a brake bleeder. Well, I don't even know what a brake bleeder is. I am not a car person, but what she said made a lot of sense because she said that the food saver didn't work as accurately and the brake bleeder was way cheaper. So I asked my youngest son that year for my birthday, I said, I'd like to have a brake bleeder for my birthday. and so I sent it to him from Amazon. And he's like, Mom, are you sure that this is an automotive thing? I said, yep, I want a brake bleeder. So this is a brake bleeder for all of you that don't know like me. And you get these are from Food Saver. You just get them online. There's two different tops. One is for a wide mouth, one is for a small mouth, okay? So I will show you. So what you do is you put the little cap on. And then you put the top on. Yep. And pump. And you're going to pump to about 15, okay? You just keep going. I'm having a hard time seeing. I'm getting closer. Okay, we're getting closer. So it does take some energy, but here's the thing. If you don't have electricity, this will work, right? Same thing with the dehydrator. If you don't have electricity, you can use the sun. We're almost there. And I'm having to pump more because I don't have this thing full, right? So then, take this off. Now, sometimes the little blue thing comes off too, but you'll see this is sealed. Okay, when you seal something, some kind of dried goods, that's gonna last you years, okay? So you can put rice, flour, beans, anything that's dried, any kind of dried good. Like I said, if you do the milk, you'll have dried milk, and you just add water to that. So it's super easy. A brake bleeder, they're about $15 on Amazon. And so like I said, YouTube is your friend. Also, a book is always your friend. Because if you don't have internet, what are you gonna do? So this is Beginner's Guide to Dehydrating Foods. And it gives tons of ideas. You can dehydrate fresh things, herbs, frozen things. I mean, it's limitless. And it's just a great way to have foods on hand or to store it for the future. Any questions? Or maybe we'll get questions later.
So dehydration lasts how long? I heard you say forever.
Years and years and years. Once you seal it. Like I put this in a jar. This will last. I mean, I could stick it in the fridge. It'll probably last a few months. Yes. So the nice thing about the dehydrator, it's going to tell you what foods need certain temperatures. Like the fruit roll-ups, it was 149 degrees. Usually it's around 200 if you're going to use an oven or less. It's low and slow is what it is.
Awesome. All right, give it up for Miss Linda on dehydrating and preserving food. That's awesome. So we're not going to take an official break. If you need to use the restroom facilities or down the hallway, women's is on the left, men's is on the right. If you need to get a refill on any of your drinks as well while you're out, that's fine. Just don't bring any food or drink back into the sanctuary, please. So we're going to just let you take breaks at will, but we're going to keep moving on with the program. Next up is going to be Bri Loftus, and she's going to be talking about canning food. So Bri, where are you, ma'am? There you are. Give it up for Miss Bri.
Thank you. So we're down here. So canning is something that a lot of people do, particularly in the Midwest. And my dad had the greenest thumb of anyone I've ever seen. His zucchini was this big. I should get a picture of it because you wouldn't believe it. So they'd come in with this huge harvest, and then my mom and my grandmother would spend all weekend canning. You use the mason jars, and once you can, you're not going to use the lids. That's important to know. Don't ever reuse the lids. You can reuse the jars, but not the lids. What I recommend is to get a book, because you want to be careful that you're doing this safely and you're not, preserving some botulism. So I'd get a book. This one is called Putting Food By. It was kind of one of those classics. There's a lot of them out there that you can get. I'd go to half price and see what you find. Basically what it is, whatever it is you want to can, a lot of times it's tomatoes or vegetables, you'll cook them up, and then this is the water bath. And you cover the jars with the water and you boil it. So I guess it would heat your house a little bit, but, and the food doesn't last as long as dehydrating, I think a good year. And what I want to warn you about is don't get overzealous with this because you'll have a lot of food you can't use. They're sitting on the shelves. So if you have 100 jars of tomatoes, you're going to be needing to share those with your neighbors. It's easy to do that. Yes, did you have a question?
How many years?
I'd say, I don't know. I mean, 1 or so. I would check that out. In my family, I think we tried to eat it like in the winter. And that's really what this started out to be, is the fall harvest to last until spring. That's what this canning was all about. And another thing that you can do easily is freezing some food. Like I was thinking this morning, you can drive to East Texas now and get blueberries for cheap. And then you just put them on some cookie sheets or something like that in your freezer and then bag them up and just stick them in the freezer. So another thing you can do is make jam. I've done that. I've got the blueberries, blackberries. You can even go to farmer's market if you don't want to go to East Texas and make jams and have jams for a while. And I think those lasted for me more than a year that I made the jams. So there's all kinds, but it's really nice to make it from the fresh produce. So I don't know, do we have any questions? This is really, I'll just tell you to get the books and read about the safety. That's the main thing with the canning, is the safety of the food. Don't break the rules. And if something looks bubbly, throw it away. If a can is bulging, or throw it away. You don't want botulism. Do you have any questions? Okay, So I'm finishing early.
Awesome. All right. I feel like we're going back to Little House on the Prairie. We're going back to farming our own land and canning, and it's kind of fun, actually. You know, I just want to share a quick story. When my grandfather told me stories about the Great Depression, he said that the way that their family survived is they had an orchard, and they would can, and they would store up their food in the cellar. And they had plenty of food, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors. They were able to feed their neighbors as well. They also had a milk cow, so they had fresh milk every morning. They had chicken, so they had fresh eggs. Not that we can do all that in a suburb, but I will say this, and Anita will touch on this with chickens. In a suburb, in a subdivision, you can have chickens in your backyard. You just can't have a rooster. But the HOA cannot prohibit you from having chickens in your backyard. The HOA can't stop that. So you can have chickens and a chicken coop and fresh eggs in the morning. Now, you might not have a milk cow, but you definitely have the chickens. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, you know, and the thing about also preserving and dehydrating and canning food is, think about your neighbors. You know, if we hit a grocery store shortage for some reason and people are not able to get food for a short while, you would be able to feed your neighbors and feed people that are in need. If you've canned a lot or dehydrated a lot, you know, dehydrated food lasts a long time. I mean, I've got MREs that I bought literally back in 2008 when Obama was president. I was expecting this during Obama's presidency. And it's 30-year shelf life. I mean, I'm talking chicken Alfredo, chicken cacciatore. I mean, it's all in cans in my garage, and it's good till 2036. I mean, I'm ready, baby. So I'm just saying, you know, if you have enough for your family, but if you're going to can, you're going to dehydrate, make a little extra for your neighbors. You never know who you might be helping out. So, Sandra? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let me say that for the live feed. That was really good, Sandra. Make sure you date it. And I do that with a Sharpie. So we go to Costco and we stock up, and I rotate my food around. So I buy lots of extra canned goods and things like that. Definitely lots of Topo Chico. I'm really stocked up on Topo. If we go into a national crisis, I will have Topo Chico. I don't care how bad it gets. I will have it. So, but I use a Sharpie, and I date everything, and then I rotate all my, and by the way, when you're thinking about food, don't buy a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't eat during peacetime. You're not going to eat it during emergency time. I mean, I got stuff, my kids will not eat that stuff. Beef stroganoff, forget it. I don't care how cheap it is on AmericanPatriots.com. My kids will not eat beef stroganoff. So, you know, meatloaf, some people will not eat meatloaf. So don't buy that MRE beef stroganoff, because if you think you're going to eat that and you hate it right now, you're going to hate it whenever you're in an emergency. Buy stuff that you will eat. Just buy it in larger quantities and then write the date on there, and then make sure you rotate it out when you buy new, just like in the grocery stores. Put the older up front and the new behind. Just rotate your food. Okay, now coming up next is a real treat for you guys. We got Mr. Wayne DeSaris, who is the king of preparations, in my opinion. He's going to talk about communications, satellite phones, and mylar bags. And this is a guy that if you need help with Excel spreadsheets or math problems, this guy is an analyst, a financial analyst for JP Morgan. Okay, he didn't make it in Excel. He made it in PowerPoint, but he can make it in Excel. So anyway, this is a good guy to pick any technical questions on communications and technical things. This is the guy you want to ask your questions of. So welcome, Brother Wayne DeSaris.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Brandon. All right, awesome. So I've got a couple sections here. I'm going to start out, I thought I'd start out real quick with just a couple rules that I live by when I'm doing this stuff. And I think we alluded to it, but to the different things, but I'm just going to kind of say it and spell it out. And so the first thing that I do when I'm thinking about just preparedness is prepare for my reality, right? I don't prepare for somebody else's reality, and I especially don't prepare for mine or somebody else's fantasy about what might happen, right? And I say that because it's really easy to get caught up in this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen, and I got to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on all of this stuff, right? And so what is helpful to do for me is to come back and say, okay, what is my reality? Where do I live? Do I live in the suburbs, or do I live on 400 acres, right? Do I have kids? Are my kids young? Are my kids old, right? how much money can I actually invest in this? Like, can I spend $5,000 or do I have $200? Or maybe you're in a situation where, I can put $40 a month maybe into this over the next couple months, right? That's your reality, and that's what you have to plan for, right? And especially part of this is the reality of what you're preparing for. If you think, let's say that you think maybe there's going to be a currency collapse, right? What is the reality of that situation? There are a lot of people that have ideas around what a currency collapse is like, but go look at examples of hyperinflation over the last 100 years. What did the people that were in those countries what were their lives actually like? And during that time. And so what do you actually need to be prepared for? If you're concerned that maybe there's going to be some sort of civil war or some sort of hot war in the country, well, there's been civil wars in the past and there's been wars in the past, right? What is life like for people that are in a country that's in the middle of civil war? Because I got news for you. For a lot of people, it's not, I'm running to the front lines with my guns and my ammo and I'm actually fighting a battle, right? So prepare for your reality. And then the second thing is, no matter what you buy, you can buy thousands of dollars worth of stuff. At the end of the day, the only two things that you're guaranteed to have with you when disaster strikes is your brain and your faith. And so, in my mind, if you're not preparing for those things first, and if you're not spending the majority of your time on those two things, then maybe you might want to rethink your priorities and say, am I in the right place before going and buying thousands of dollars worth of stuff? We already talked about faith. I'll touch on brain. Kathy already talked about emotional state and what state you're in. I would add to that knowledge. Knowledge is power. The example that I say, or that I like to use is, just saving up water, right? It's a great thing to store water. And like Brandon said, it's something that if you don't have any water, it's something that you might want to think about. You could save up 1,000 gallons of water, and that's maybe a great thing to do. That 1,000 gallons of water is going to weigh 8,500 pounds, about 2.5 times the weight of my truck. You're not taking it with you. It's not going anywhere. It's going to sit where you put it. And so maybe even more valuable than 1,000 gallons of water is knowing half a dozen ways to purify water. Being able to walk into a Kroger and get the supplies that you need to purify some water that you found out of a river or out of a creek or out of a lake, right? And you can apply that logic to every single area that we're preparing in. First aid knowledge. Knowledge about how essential oils and things like that work, knowledge about how food saving works and all of that stuff, right? A lot of times that is as valuable, if not more valuable, than all of the stuff required to do it. And so that's kind of the way that I think about the way that I think about it when I'm approaching it for my family. Let me talk about mylar bags first. This is my kind of preferred method for preserving food. I think about it, I'm talking like rice and beans, and it's a lot of the same principles as like sucking the air out of cans. You can go to Sam's Club right now and buy a 25-pound bag of rice for about $13. There's 40,000 calories in a 25-pound bag of rice. That means for one person, a 25-pound bag of rice is going to be enough calories for 20 days. So $13, that's 2/3 of your 30-day plan. And when you put it in a mylar bag like this, these are the same materials that NASA uses for like space blankets and stuff like that. NASA actually created it. When you put them in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, rice, beans, things like that don't have oils inside of them will last for 20 years or more sometimes. I haven't tested that myself, but we have definitely pulled stuff out of our pantry that was bagged 5 years ago, and it's just as fresh as the day that you put it in the bag. So the way that these work, they're fairly cheap. You can buy a packet of like 25 or 30 of these, I think, for about $30. And most of the time they actually come with the oxygen absorbers. If I can actually get mine open. And it's just a bag. It's a gallon bag. You put your food in. You put an oxygen absorber in it. And then some of them come with actual like a Ziploc kind of a thing. All of them have the ability to be heat sealed. You can buy special heat sealers to seal these. But what I found to be the easiest is just stealing my wife's straight iron. And if you do that, you just crank it up to about 380 degrees and it'll seal these real easy. If you don't have one, you can buy one for about $15. And it's a lot better than spending $50 or $100 to get an actual sealer for these. And we've done hundreds of pounds of food. We've done, we do flour, we do rice, we do beans. The beans and the rice literally has a shelf life of about 20 years or so. The flour, if it's white just white regular flour, I think the shelf life on that is about 10. And then if it's a flour that has a little bit more oil in it, one of the specialty flours, that's something more like 2 or 3 years. And it really all depends. Somebody had asked, well, what's the shelf life of a lot of this stuff? It really depends on the oil content. If the food has a lot of oil in it, that breaks down and gets rancid after about 2 years in the right conditions. And so if you've got that, that's kind of the upper end. If you're dealing with something that's drier, like rice or beans that doesn't have, like dried beans, I guess, that doesn't have a lot of oil in it, then you can get 10 years plus. So, and like I said, you can do this really, really cheap. So this is my preferred method of food storage. Okay, so the next topic that I want to talk about is emergency communications. I'll be completely honest with you here. I am not, I'll say, a hobbyist when it comes to emergency communications. This is not something that I spend a lot of time on. And it's not something that, I don't have a ham radio license and I'm spending my evenings and weekends and, part of groups and stuff like that. And so for some of you that are interested in that, that makes me about the worst person in the world to teach this segment. And then for others that, maybe you're like me and you're just looking for something that if cell phones are out one day or something like that, that you can communicate. And want to think about cost and how easy it is to use and that kind of stuff. And so that's the approach that I'm taking. If that's kind of your mentality, then that might make me a better person to teach this segment. So that's where I'm going to start. What you're looking at right here, this is a number of devices that I have. This is a one-way radio. These 3 are two-way radios. And then this is a satellite communicator. I'll start really quickly with the one-way. It's not communication, so to say, because it's only a one-way. This is just a regular radio. We love these, though. These are NOAA radios, which means they can get all of the normal channels that you have, plus your NOAA channels. And NOAA is the government agency that's kind of responsible for monitoring atmospheric-related stuff and reporting on the weather. If you have a regular radio that's not an NOAA radio, then you won't be able to get the weather channels. We like this because especially with the tornadoes around and stuff like that, and kind of the most likely time for the power or internet to be out is when you've got tornadoes and thunderstorms on the ground. So we love these. These start, I want to say these are about 20, 25 bucks. And then they go up to 80 or 100 bucks depending on how many bells and whistles you want. But these are awesome. We've got a number of these floating around and they're just great tools to have. Moving into two-way radio communication. So one thing I'll say about these, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a perception around that you'll pick up one of these radios and that you could communicate for 100, 500 or 500 miles or worldwide and you could just pick up a radio like this and call Uncle Joe in Kansas. The reality is, some of these services that I'm going to talk about, you do have the ability to communicate pretty long distances. They're very powerful. And radio in general is very powerful. But the drawback and the thing that you'll have a trade-off with is the more distance and the better performance that you get out of these things, the more knowledge and understanding of radio theory and FCC regulations nationally and internationally you have to have, and the more money you'll spend on equipment in order to do that, right? And so these are all handheld radios. This is what we call FRS. This is a family radio service. This is just a walkie-talkie, and that operates off of a system called FRS. Anybody can use it. Anybody can pick one up. You don't have to have a license for it. FRS, maximum wattage is 2 watts. And so what that means is it's very short range. You're looking at maybe 1 to 2 miles off of something like these. If you're in the middle of a desert and you can, it's dead flat and you can see for many miles, like maybe then you're pushing 20 or 30 miles to talk on this. But for the most part, in a suburb like this, you're talking 1 to 2 miles. This next one is a GMRS radio. This is another service that the government allows, that the U.S. government allows. The FCC regulates it within the U.S. These are a little bit more powerful. They're the same channels plus a couple extra channels from the FRS. There's a license required. It's $35, 10 years. and it's good for your entire family, which is what I like. So you get a $35 license, and your entire immediate family can communicate with these. The power on these is a little bit more. So this radio, I think this is 5 watts, but in general, you can use up to 50 watts with GMRS. And so what that means is you get a lot better distance. Now, you're still not communicating to the northern side of Oklahoma, but with this, like, you're lucky to communicate down the street, whereas with this, you might be talking about a wider range within Frisco. I've personally gotten over 6 miles with this one. And they're fairly good. Now, like I said, still not I'm going to pick up the phone and, or I'm going to pick up the radio and talk to somebody in Oklahoma or Austin or, wherever, but they're still fairly powerful. And then the last one is ham radio. I feel like that's the one that most people hear about and talk about, especially in the preparedness world. Ham radio is a very powerful service. You're allowed to operate radios up to 1,500 watts, I believe, on a variety of different frequencies. And basically what that allows you to do is effectively set up a radio station in your house. You can have a big base station, you can have an antenna on the top of your house, or a big antenna tower in your backyard. And through the use of repeaters, which are basically devices that pick up signals and then blast them out at much higher power over a broader range, you can communicate, fairly easy, 50, 100 miles, 200 miles with something like that. The drawback with this is requires a test. This is the test book. It's a very technical test. You get to calculate watts and ohms and get to know everything there is to know about frequencies. The license is $35. The test is $15, and it is only for the person that takes it. So if you want to communicate with your spouse or your kids or whoever, everybody's got to get the ham radio license. If it's something you're interested in, this is by far the most powerful service that we have available to us for emergency communications. And there are networks of thousands. I think there's almost 1 million people that have a ham radio license in the United States. And then there are thousands of the repeaters throughout the United States. And so the service is amazing. It just takes, if you have a desire to kind of pick up a radio and communicate for hundreds of miles, you're going to invest a lot of time learning how radio works, and then you're going to invest a lot of money learning how it works. So that's a little overview of radio. This last thing, this is, I think, my favorite new device. This is a satellite communicator. This one is a Garmin InReach Mini 2. Basically, the way that this works is there are several civilian satellite networks. And it'll be a network of 20, 30, in this case 66 satellites that are positioned around the globe for the purpose of civilian communications. And they work exactly the same way almost that cell towers do, where you've got the network and then a company can come on top of that and use the network for cell service. So like T-Mobile or AT&T or whoever. And these work the same way. So the network that this is Iridium. It's the Iridium satellite network, and the company that makes this device is Garmin. These are incredibly powerful. The network that this is on spans the globe, and it does that intentionally because it's designed for adventurous folks. It's designed for somebody to take on an around-the-world yacht race or exploring the Arctic, and that's actually what they're used for. So, the use case is kind of you're mountaineering out in the middle of the Alps, and there's no cell phone tower or anything like that, and you need to call an emergency, you need a rescue or something like that. That's what these are designed for. And so they are very powerful in doing that. Depending on how much money you want to spend and what that specific device was designed for, you can get services that range from simply being able to send a text message, which is what this is, all the way up to actually having a conversation with somebody like a satellite phone. And really what the trade-off is just how much money you're willing to spend. All of them are fairly easy to use. These aren't meant for hobbyists in satellite communication kind of a thing. This is meant for somebody whose hobby is being out of cell phone range and needs a device that's very easy to pick up and use. So they're all meant for, I'll say layman, just a layman to use. They're really easy. You don't need a whole lot of technical expertise to use any of the ones that I've seen. The drawback is that they're expensive. This device in particular, I think it normally runs about $400. I think they're on sale for $300 for Father's Day weekend. And then I've seen other satellite communication, like satellite phones and things like that, that go upwards of $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever. The other piece that you need to consider with these is that they all have, similar to your cell phone, they have subscription plans. The plan for this one I think is $11 per device, but I've seen them go for anywhere from $50 to even $150 for the Starlink ones that Musk did per month. And so they cost more money. Now, the range is incredible. You can literally communicate anywhere in the world. This one is set up to send a message to my wife's email address, and my wife's satellite communicator. And I can do that from wherever. And the reason that I got these is because I travel for business, and I wanted to be able to communicate from anywhere in the world, depending on if the cell phones were out, and I didn't want to have a radio the size of a suitcase in order to do it. And so that's the trade-off. Definitely more expensive, but the capabilities are very high up there. Yeah.
That's a lot cheaper than Sat 1C3.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of different services that will use satellites. These are cheaper. Like, these are not bad. Now, the downside is you're literally allowed to send text messages, and that's it. And there's a text message limit. And I think if I go over my limit, it's like 50 cents a text message for everything over my limit. So, what's that? For the $11 plan, the limit is like 10 texts or something like that. Now, there's a caveat to that. You can send, remember, this is for emergencies. This is, I'm in the mountains, hey, I'm okay, right? You can put preset messages into these, like just a check-in, hey, I'm doing okay, and you can send an unlimited amount of them. But if you want a custom message, then you've got a limit of 10. You can also get weather reports with them. You can also get maps with them. So they're pretty powerful. Yep. Well, and that's actually another good point with all of these. There are dependencies for all of these. The way that I would charge this is I have a solar bank. I have a solar power bank that I carry with me when I travel, and I usually make sure that it's charged up before I go. And then that charges via solar if I ever need it to, and I just charge it with that. But that's important. All of these have dependencies. And dependency may be AAA batteries, or maybe having the ability to charge this. The dependency for this is obviously the satellite network. And so I know that if something happens to the satellite network, this isn't going to work. But my goal is not to have a device that's going to work 12 years post the entire grid collapsing kind of a thing. My goal is, hey, the cell phone service doesn't work where I'm at. I need something that's a backup, right? So that's another thing that you have to look at when you're figuring these out is, who am I wanting to communicate with? It's planned for your reality. Who am I wanting to communicate with? And then what are the dependencies of each of these things? Like, will this thing work for me in that situation? Yes? I haven't figured out how to do voice to text. I don't think this particular one has voice to text. At least I've never seen it. The way that this works is it's a very small screen, but you can actually type into this. But the easier way to do it is there's an app on your phone, and you can Bluetooth connect to your phone. You don't need service to be able to do it. All you need is to be able to connect via Bluetooth. You connect via Bluetooth to your phone, and then you can type in stuff on your phone, and that's a lot easier. So that's usually how I do it. Yeah, I've got 22 seconds. Yeah. Well, the big difference is that the cell phones use towers to communicate that are located on the ground, whereas this is an independent network. It's an independent network. I agree with you. There's definitely the risk there of what happens if the satellite network is down for whatever reason, but it is completely independent from the cell phone network, and that's why I've got both. I've personally got this, obviously I've got this, and then I'm also GMRS licensed. I'm not ham licensed. I was about to be ham licensed, and then I studied for it. I studied the book. I was ready to take the test, and then right before COVID, when COVID hit, they stopped doing the testing for like 6 months. By the time I could get another test, I'd forgotten the stuff in the book. So, yes, ma'am.
On the ham operator, you don't have to be a ham operator
In an emergency. Yes, that's true. You can. You absolutely can. So what she's saying is if there's an emergency, a true emergency, a lot of the rules go out the window with these. What I will say, though, Apostle Kathy, is these are complicated. Like, you need to know what you're doing, and you need to have practice with it in order to be efficient. You can pick up the phone or the radio and get in touch with anybody in the area, but if you really want the longer range stuff, it's all about the knowledge base that you have.
All right, give it up for Mr. Wayne. That was awesome. Everything you ever wanted to know about communicating on phones, right? All right, we're at our halfway point. Let's all stand up and stretch our legs out. Oh, we need a good stretch before we move into the last half of our training. So, are you guys enjoying this? Is the information useful? Okay, is anybody going to take any of this away and use any of this? Okay, good. All right. All right, just stretch for another 20 seconds or so and... We're about to get into generators. We're going to talk about different types of generators. All right, y'all can be seated now. Just wanted you to stretch out a little bit. Okay, we're now going to move into different types of generators. We're going to talk about gas generators, car generators. We're going to talk about propane storage and water storage. So to cover the subject of gas generators, propane storage, gas storage, and water storage, we're going to have Carla's other half, Mr. Bob Sheave, who's going to talk about those items now. So give it up for Mr. Bob.
All right, in agreement with both Wayne and Kathy, we need to analyze our individual situations. We're all different, okay? Carolyn has herself and a cat when it comes to water. We have 2 horses, a donkey, 4 cows, 2 dogs, plus ourselves. So we've got a whole different scenario for water usage. So we need to analyze our own individual situations, okay, and what our need is. And Wayne hit on it, and I'm not going to cover it, but I'll just reinforce what he said. Water purification is a different situation than water storage. Water purification involves filtering, okay? And so you need to, we can study that, but just so you know, you read about these pills you drop in the water, you can drink and all that kind of stuff. I have some. That doesn't filter the water. You dip your cup in a pond, it's got all the brown stuff in it and all the things. That's still going to be there after you drop the pill in. Okay, so filtering is a whole different situation, and that's something that can be studied. Okay, and there are portable filter things that you can get, cups and so on, jugs that do some of those things, but those filters will need to be cleaned. So keep all that in mind. Okay. What do we have? Yeah, okay. So first of all, water storage, like I mentioned, okay, we have animals. So our situation is different. Our horses in the heat of the summer run 100 gallons a day. Our cattle run 100 gallons a day. I need 200 gallons a day of water just for the livestock. That doesn't count our personal need. If you get online and Google things about water usage, if we're supposed to have 64 ounces of water a day personally, that's 3.5 gallons a week per person. You've got your other little necessities. If you figure 7 gallons a person a day times 7, that's 49 gallons. This is a 55-gallon drum. If you've got 2 people in the household, you're roughly talking 2 of those a week if you have water storage, okay? Not necessary, but this is a picture of a stand. They've got the 2 tanks looped together, so they've got 110 gallons. They've got a valve on the bottom, which will, you can get those on Amazon for 15, 20 bucks. And then they've got a hose that filters out. If you do a setup like that, that's a portable pump, but if you do a setup like this, you want to have that thing elevated. A 5-gallon bucket's 15 inches tall. So I'd recommend that you have that valve like 20 inches off the ground. So if you want to put a 5-gallon bucket in it, you can. The 5-gallon bucket comes into use when you want to flush your toilet, if you don't have power or water, okay, things like that. So, or if you need bulk water for a tub, to bathe or things like that. That's how that would come into play if your water is down and you don't have actual water. We've been through an F4. We've had power outages. We've lived in the country for 20 years, so we're familiar with some of these down things a little bit. So just having extra stuff around doesn't hurt. Okay, let's go to the next one. We had that pump. Okay, if you have a barrel and it's vertical, this is a pump that's run by a battery drill or an electric drill. You've got a draw hose and a feed hose. The barrels have taps in the top of them. They're 2-inch taps. You take the tap out, you drop the hose in, start the drill, and it pumps water out into a bucket. okay? So that's an option. What do you have for the next picture there? Okay, this is a siphon pump. It goes into the top of the barrel, you start pumping it, and it creates a siphon. You don't have to have the drill, and it'll pump out. Now, both of those are not real high volume situations. 5 gallons, I believe a minute, if I remember right. So if you're talking, you need 100 gallons in a tank, it's gonna be a while. This is a valve. It's a 2-inch valve that goes in the bottom of the 55-gallon barrel. If you have it laying horizontally, that's gonna get some water out. I have a skid loader. When I need to get water to the tanks, if we don't have water and I've got a barrel, I will put the barrel on the forks of the loader. I will drive over, I'll open the valve, and I'll just let the water drain out, gravity flow into the tank. Okay, this is a IBC. It's a, and on these water storage containers, they need to be food grade containers. Food grade means that they don't deteriorate from the inside. They don't leach plastic particles into the water, okay? This is a 275-gallon tote, has a valve on the bottom, same principle as a barrel. Any of these things, now, water's 9 pounds a gallon. If you've got a 55-gallon barrel, you're talking just about 500 pounds. It's 490 pounds. One of these totes is about 2,500 pounds. So if you're gonna elevate it, I would recommend putting this one on concrete blocks. A concrete block is 7 5/8 inches tall, so I'd put 3 of them under there. That's gonna give me about 21 inches so that I can get a bucket underneath it or something like that. And then you can get smaller valves to, like this one here, it's a 5/8. That one you could actually put a hose on, which that's got the 2-inch bung on the top to go into the barrel or into the bottom of the tank. It's got the ball valve, and then you can have the hose on it, or you can just drain directly into a bucket, okay? So those are options for making these things functional. Okay, this is most of us in our homes have got a propane valve that we use for the outdoor grill, the gas grill. Okay, that's all this is. I have a hose or a line that I run to my generator. I'm in construction, so I have generators. You get the one at the generator there? Okay, this is a dual fuel generator, both gas and propane. I've got the propane tap hooked up to the house so that I can turn the valve on. We are on propane, we live in the country, so I've got a 500-gallon propane tank that feeds the house that I feed this generator off of. If I do that, it's standard. You can bury them. We are in the process of getting this one, getting a buried tank in place. Let's go back to the generator. Okay, so I've got a plug on the outside of the house there that's wired into the fuse box, into the breaker box, and then it plugs into the generator. You run the generator, it back feeds the house. Now, when you do that, you need to have what they call a transfer switch. That shuts off the power from going from the generator through your house back into the main line. You don't want that. You need to have a break on that. So all this will do is feed the house. If you don't have a transfer switch, you need to manually disconnect or drop your main fuses in your box. And they're usually 200 amp, I believe, switches, depending on the size of your box, but you've got to shut the mains down to backfeed that. Now, back on the generator, if you're limited into how much you can feed, and you can figure out, this one here is a 15,000. You divide that by, you take your watts and divide it by the amps, and that gives you your amp output, or divide it by voltage, 120 volts, and that gives you your amp output. And I believe that's roughly on this one about 100 amps, 90 something, I don't remember. But that's a 50 amp plug, okay? So that will backfeed off that one plug 50 amps. Refrigerators, freezers are approximately 3 to 7 amps draw. Water heater is, oh goodness, it's in that same range, I believe. Furnaces vary from 40 to 80. So you need to have an idea of what it is your draw is going to be when you're going on to that. Okay, then there's alternative cooking methods. The old Coleman camp stove has been sitting on the shelf for years. I dug it out. You can still buy the fuel for them. Fired up works good. For those that like to cook out a lot or smoke meat or things like that, you've got your charcoal and your lighter fluid and stuff on the grill. And buy a bunch of those little boxes of matches. You don't know. Flashlights, batteries, little boxes of matches, those are good things to have around in those situations. Okay, and then we have, most of us in our situations are just gonna have gas cans, you know, something we stick inside the garage or outside in a little storage shed or something. Make sure you've got adequate ventilation. That's very important. I've got a fire extinguisher there on the wall. I've got some others inside the shop. You can see some of my water barrel storage down on the end where I've got them lined up. I've got, you need to keep your water out of direct sunlight and try and keep it out of the heat as much as possible when you store it. Put some chlorine. Our water's all chlorinated out of the tap, so that does help keep algae out of the barrels. But you want to keep your water out of direct sunlight, and you want to chlorine treat it. About a tablespoon. I just put a tablespoon in these, and then you aerate it every 3 months, or every 6 months, I mean, and it has about a 12-month shelf life, roughly. Some people say it'll go a lot longer than that, but you need to aerate it. This is for the animals, so I will rotate that through. This is a 100-gallon storage tank. Either a hand pump or electric pump goes on top of it for either gasoline or for diesel, depending on your need. Those products do accumulate, I'll just call it a slime, inside when they're stored for long periods of time. So you need to rotate that also to keep it fresh. Okay, this is the old ag overhead gravity flow fuel tank. If you're in a situation like that where you can utilize that, again, you're going to want to, instead of going to the gas station, you know, once you get one of these things filled, you're going to want to utilize a little bit, you know, keep it up and put some fresh back on top to keep the thing flowing. All right.
Sure.
Okay, one other thing. So when we're getting our water out of those tanks when they're laying down, you got your tank in the garage, you're laying it down, you need some water in the kitchen. You got that little valve on the end. I put it in a 1-gallon jug, take it in and we can use it. This is a Brita. We use this every day. We put water in it to help filter. They have a filter on the inside. That blue piece on the bottom, okay? And so then we can use that. We can pour that. We have some water that we have run through the filter that we keep in the refrigerator. This is the same thing in a bigger version. And then always have some backup filters.
All right, so that would be generators, water storage on a very large scale. If you have land, if you've got the ability to put in big tanks, you can also do it on the smaller scale. For those of us that, you know, don't have the ability to put a big, you know, a couple 100-gallon tank in our backyards, we have another option we want to talk about now, which is car generators, a much smaller generator. And Doug Etheridge is the expert on car generators. And by the way, I have 2 of these car generators at my house, and Doug's going to tell us how to do it in the suburbs. So Doug, car generators.
All right. Thank you. I don't know how many of you saw when you were walking in the little blower blowing balloons. That is a car generator hooked up to the little fan, and it's been running since about 7:45. So when you leave, check to see if it's still blowing. Now, one thing I've learned, and I don't understand the science of it, but those balloons have been popping. So you can just put your hand over it if the balloons have popped. So we're going to talk about the car generator. So what is the car generator? It's the world's lightest generator at 11 pounds. It requires no maintenance. It easily powers your gas furnace, refrigerator, freezer for up to 50 to 70 hours. It will recharge your portable power stations without the need of expensive solar panels. You already own 75% of a backup generator sitting in your driveway. Add a car generator to your vehicle and you'll have the most reliable, longest running, ultralight, no maintenance backup power solution. It works on gas, diesel, hybrid, or pure EV vehicles. It starts with an inverter, a high-quality, commercial-grade, pure sine wave unit, essentially to safely power your furnace, refrigerator, and other electronic items. Then a custom manufactured booster cable made of oxygen-free, pure copper, super heavy duty to handle the power and made to withstand the heat of your engine. Then adding an adjusting strap with a rubberized backing so it can safely hang on the front of your vehicle. So your car or truck is a backup generator for your house, RV, camping, off-grid. What can it run? Well, let's first talk about what it cannot run. It can't run your whole house. Big appliances like air conditioning, laundry machines, electric portable heaters, electric hot water heaters, or electric stovetops. So what can you power with a car generator? Your gas furnace, refrigerator, freezer, TV, computers, and you can charge portable power stations again with pure sine wave power. Any single item or combination of items totaling no more than 1,000 watts. Medical devices such as CPAP machines, oxygen machines, RV or trailer batteries. If you're on the move, it can power blenders, fridges, emergency lights, or an espresso machine. So why is a car generator and your vehicle a great option for power backup? Longer run time, 50 to 70 hours. It's environmentally superior. Your car has thousands of dollars of pollution controls and engine management. It's ultra reliable and hassle-free. It's lightweight and it's convenient. Do I need to leave my car engine running? Yes. There are only two ways of generating backup power other than solar. Backup batteries or power from a combustion engine, as in a traditional gas generator. Like a traditional gas generator, the car generator uses a motor to provide the power, turning fuel into electricity, but you have a much larger gas tank. So again, 50 to 70 hours of runtime is possible instead of 5 to 8, and it's only 11 pounds. Will it drain my battery? No, absolutely not. Once your car is started, your battery is out of the equation. Your car's electrical system's power actually comes from the alternator. Batteries just start the car and get the motor running. So your battery will not even notice the car generator is attached. Isn't it bad to idle a car for a long period of time? Nope, not unless you plan on hooking up the car generator to a 59 Studebaker. Modern cars are designed to handle all kinds of operating conditions. At idle, the car's computer makes sure that the engine is adequately cool and lubricated. Think about all the police vehicles and ambulances that are typically idled all the time. Will the car generator lose efficiency like lithium and portable power packs? No, because there is no internal battery. If you need a car generator more than a couple of times a year, you would likely be better with a natural gas powered generator. Another note on that, if you should ever have to be on the move, you can't take that one with you. So why not just buy a cheap inverter? That's totally an option. If you want to jury rig an inverter, you certainly could. If you had the knowledge and expertise, you could buy all the components and do so. For those wanting an easy, inverter-proven solution, car generator is simply the best solution. The car generator provides 1,000 watts continuously and a 2,000 watt surge. Is 1,000 watts enough? To run your gas furnace or oil furnace or heat your entire house, it only requires between 100 and 400 watts on average. To run a refrigerator, it requires 200 to 300 watts typically. The number one identified problem with a gas generator is failure to start. Car generator is always as ready as your vehicle is. After that, everything else is a bonus up to a maximum of 1,000 watts. Once your furnace is running and you see how much power it uses, you can then add cell phone chargers, laptops, iPads, tablets, computers, a few lights, fridges, and freezers. You can also rotate the devices in shifts, so plug in fridges and freezers for a few hours and then switch to other devices for a few hours and maximize your available power and keep portable batteries charged up. If your need for backup power is occasional and modest, then a car generator is a great option. Remember, the car generator is simply another option out there. That's the reason for Brandon putting this meeting together for all of us so that we can learn. How long can the car generator provide power? For as long as your car can run. Most typical vehicles, that would be about 2 days, 48 hours. For hybrid vehicles, it would be 3 to 5 days or more. And after that, simply drive to a gas station, provided they're open, and refill your car. How do I provide power for my house furnace? In order to provide power for your house furnace, your main furnace, you have to install a simple bypass electrical plug switch. Excuse me, you can either do that yourself or have your HVAC tech do it, or you can hire an electrician. In my house, I rewired that switch myself, and I ran a 100-foot extension cord from my furnace to the opening of my garage. So if I have a power failure in the wintertime, I just go up in the attic, I unplug my furnace, I plug it into the end of the extension cord, and then I hook that up to the car generator. So what are your options for backup power? You have the whole home generator, a portable gas generator, solar generator with solar panels, a battery generator, and a car generator. There are different models of the car generator, but most alternators only output enough for 1,000 watts. A Ford F-150 will run 85 hours powering 2,000 watts. So like Bob, your truck would probably, you'd be able to have a larger car generator. I just want you to know that in this last little storm that we had, I was out of power from 6:30 in the morning to 3:30. And I very easily hooked up my car generator, and I kept my refrigerator and freezer running. And most importantly, it kept 6 gallons of Bluebell ice cream frozen. Now, you wonder why I have 6 gallons of Bluebell ice cream. My 97-year-old mother-in-law eats about 2 gallons a week. And at 97, she can eat whatever she wants. So I buy it when it's on sale. Car generator is perfect for good times as well as bad times, and allowing you to power your laptop while camping or fire up a crock pot while you're tailgating. Jonathan Slew is the founder and CEO of Car Generator. I have found him to be excellent to work with, very helpful and responsive, and best of all, he is a lover of Jesus. He has provided an extra blessing to anyone who makes a decision to purchase this Saturday or Sunday, and bless them with a 5-year extended warranty at no cost, which is a $200 value. That's all I have. Be sure and check to see if the balloons are blowing when you leave. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Great presentation, Doug. And like I said, I have 2 car generators, and I have run my freezer. I have a big deep freeze, the stand-up kind, that's full of half of a cow that I had slaughtered. So I like meat. So I got half a cow sitting in mine, and I can't let that food go to waste. So my generator, when the power went out, I'm running my freezer and my fridge. Now we can get cold. I got blankets for the cold. I ain't worried about my HVAC, but we're gonna eat beef if there's a crisis, okay? So, yes, ma'am. Doug, what's the cost on it?
The generator itself is $8.99, and there's some accessories that you should buy. One of them is the adapter.
Right. Base cost $8.99 with the accessories $11.99 if you want to hook up your furnace. But when you look at what a solar power generator, a full house generator costs, a Generac, how much is a Generac? Like $5,000 plus to do the whole house. So $5,000 to $6,000 for a Generac. So I mean, Plus installation, you got an electrician that's got to rewire your house. So that's another expense. So car generator, when you're looking at powering the same device as you would with a whole house generator, can be very economical to do a car generator. So, yes. Okay, so we have handouts for the car generator with QR codes. If you want to go to their website, you can scan that. Okay, all right, so now we're going to talk about solar ovens, because I'm sure at this point in the day, this close to lunch, we're getting hungry, and we need to talk about how to cook our food using sunlight. So to teach us that is a man from Sweden by the name of Åke Karlsson, the Swedish meatball man. That's just a joke. Teach us how to cook with the sunlight. And here's your clicker, and I just have to get your slides up, and then you can advance with that big button. I can click it? Okay. Okay, let me get your slides up. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I made it available, so just in case my Swedish accent is a little hard to understand. Yes. So so it's going to be available so you can read what I'm talking about. Pretty much, it will be available there. So I'm talking about solar cookers and talking about 3 basic models for it. And so it's what we call box cooker and panel cooker and parabolic reflector cooker. And they all are kind of different. There is one sample there in the yellow box right there. So I think in my age you need glasses. Yeah. A solar cooker is a type of solar thermal collector. It gathers that traps the sun and thermal energy. So heat is produced when high frequency light is converted into low frequency infrared radiation. So it basically converts sunlight into heat. So solar cookers are used around the world to cook food and pasteurize water for safe drinking. They use a free renewable energy source and do not pollute the environment. So solar cookers are particularly useful when other sources of fuel are unavailable or to prevent the use of fossil fuel. So the first one we're talking about will be the box cooker. The box cooker is like a box that is pretty much like cooking in a stove, oven, or a slow cooker. As the name suggests, they have an interior chamber, a box that uses reflectors to concentrate more sunlight into the box. Glazing to allow sunlight in the box and then trap the heat, and insulation to retain as much heat as possible. Commercially made box ovens can reach 400 degrees Fahrenheit on a clear sunny day. Box ovens can be easily made from inexpensive and recycled materials. So on the next slide is a picture, a schematic picture how it is built up. It is basically a box that has good insulation in the framework, so it keeps the heat in. You have, in this cheap version, there's an aluminum foil to reflect the sunlight in the box, and you have a plexiglass cover on top of it so that's just a part of the insulation, as well as to keep the rays coming into the box. So that's pretty much the schematics of a simple version. It can be much more complicated than that, but this is the simple picture. So, and the next slide shows pretty much our first version that me and my wife built. She believed in it right away, even in Illinois. I never did. So she had to start this project to show me that it actually works. I was thinking that, what is that? How can you do with just the sunlight, how can you get cooking temperatures? And was I ever wrong? I've burned myself many times of the items that we cooked. So there is a list of different items that we have been cooking, boiling potatoes and sweet potatoes, all kind of vegetables, rice and pasta, beans, lentils and salmon, and brisket, beef jerky, chicken, meatballs, and many soups. This young lady here, she can testify, because all that was baked or cooked in her garden, in her backyard. That's my wife's sister, by the way, Claudia. So the key here obviously are the panels that are collecting. The next picture is my next project. I'm in the building process right now. So it has a real mirror. So this is the best reflector you can have. It's a real mirror. And here's a glass front, and the top. And so you put the pans. This is spacey, built out of very cheap material. That's the key to hold this thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money into it. So this was a drawer in the bottom. It's from a restore. Top was two drawers that I merged together. And then, so very inexpensive material. And so the cost is almost nothing. And this time of the year, you don't need all the heat indoors when you're cooking. You better keep everything of the heat production outside if you can. And it's so sunny here, so I would never work in Sweden, I can say it that much. It would never do. So the next one we're going to talk about is the panel cooker. And the panel cooker is cooked the same way that you would normally cook on a covered pot or on the top of the stove. They use reflectors to gather the light into the box, and that is producing the heat inside the box, and you have like a bag around your items, and this is displaying that, the yellow one sitting there. So the temperature in the box, in the pot of the panel cooker can reach and maintain boiling temperatures. Panel cookers can be easily made from inexpensive material and are simple to use for cooking and on clear sunny days. So next picture shows easy schematics of that. Sunlight coming in on the reflectors, reflects into, there is like a bag around it, that is for insulation, it's called oven bag, I think. So the pot should be black, it's the most efficient. So, and then all this reflected sunlight goes into the pot, and the bag is now the insulation on it. So that is how that is working. And the next picture shows the yellow one sitting here. There is a cost to that one. We bought him ready like that. It's called all-season solar cooker. They claim that you can use it any time of the year. And so we paid about $100 for it. I've seen it for a little bit less than that. And I was cooking in that yesterday just to practice because I built it up a couple of days ago. So after 1 hour, I had 259 degrees. I was measuring on the top of the cover here. So it's a very dark pan in here. So I was measuring the temperature here. So after an hour, I had far beyond the boiling 212 degrees. So, and then you can, so you flip it so you can adjust it to the angle of the sun. And here's like a calibrating device. So by this, you see how the sun, there should be no shadow on this one. So when the sun is coming like this, we're so close to midsummer time right now, midsummer. So the sun is coming pretty much straight from above. So it has to be in this position. And so there will be no shadow on this. And if you see a shadow, then you have to turn it a little bit and adjust so you get the best efficiency out of the stove, out of these panels. So it's a very nice contraption. And so that is that. And so I was up to almost 260 degrees in an hour. So you can practically cook anything that you need to do. The last one that I have is the parabolic reflector cooker. Parabolic cookers produce the highest temperatures and can be used to fry or grill food. Pot and lids and cooking bags are not necessary. Parabolic cookers uses reflectors concentrate a large amount of sunlight into a single focal point. And here is the key, the single focal point. And they say that they can reach up to 500 degrees on doing that. And so it's really the parabolic shape that is so effective that you see a good picture of it. Sunlight coming in, and this whole reflector is now sending so much light to be converted into heat in that black pot hanging there. Can build it out of, they suggest like large umbrellas or from satellite dishes or something like that, old stuff, just recycled stuff. So most of them are built by recycled stuff, and that will be my last slide coming up with something very recycled. Seems to be an Amazon product over there, very homemade obviously, but still works. In the framework of that box, they have insulation, and they have like typically shredded paper or something into that just to insulate so the heat is not seeping out. And then they have a very inexpensive sort of reflector on it to reflect in. The one to the left is something that you buy. You have to pay quite good bucks for it. In this case, with a rack there, is for dehydration. So, and this has also a glass cover, so those animals that would normally come in that process would never enter in. So, and they will burn quickly too if they even tried. So, what is the advantage of a solar cooker? No requirement of cooking gas, kerosene, electricity, coal, or wood. No need to spend the fuel as solar energy is available free, especially in Texas, though. Have to say that. And food cooked in solar cookers is nutritious. They say about 10 to 20% of the protein retention is more, and compared to that in a conventional cooking. So, as a lot of good reasons, and it is for free. Son is good, God is good. The Son of God is even better. Amen.
Thank you, okay. Give it up for our expert from Sweden. Yes. I feel like I just heard a lecture from an engineer. This guy really knows the technical aspects of these, which is totally awesome. And I like the fact that you buy it one time and then, hey, now my dinner is free forever because the sun never runs out, right? So it's good stuff. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move into gold and silver and alternative forms of currency. We have two more presentations, by the way, and then we'll be done. We'll do Q&A, then we'll be done. So Mark Kissy, he is the gold and silver man, and he's got the hookup with the guy that gets you the best gold and silver prices. I have bought gold and silver from his supplier and got a really good deal on it. So Mark Kissy, if the dollar fails, what are we going to do?
You better have faith in God. You better have faith in God. I want to salute you all and applaud you all for showing up today to move forward, to gain knowledge, and to get the wisdom to put that knowledge to use because times are changing right now. I'm just going to read off a couple of my notes, go through this. Lord, I ask for your spirit over my tongue. Let's not live in a spirit of fear, because there's a lot of things that are coming that are going to be happening. If you look in Revelation, chickens are the first one to get the fry in the lake of fire. The fearful are the ones that go into hell's fire first. Haggai 2:8 says, "The silver is mine, the gold is mine, declares the Lord Almighty. And the glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, says the Lord God Almighty. And in this place I will grant peace, declares the Lord God Almighty." Gold and silver have been around for thousands of years. It's God's currency. God created it. We have Gerosalantes. He has this famous saying, the banksters. I don't care if it goes back to England, if it goes back to Rome. There's a reason why the Romans would take their material that they got paid with and they count it. It's the sound of money. You cannot debase this with copper and get the same sound out of it. Same thing with gold. If you touch it together, it's got a certain clang to it. When you read in the scriptures about the gold and silver are corroded and they're a witness against you, if you take a look at that, it's for all those who defraud one another. If I'm a business owner and I do not pay my people well, I'm not going to have God's blessings. If you read the scriptures, search the matter out like the Bereans. Don't believe anything I say. Acts 17:11. Go search the matter out. You'll see that God will give you wealth. He gives you wealth because he's a great king. How do I have great subjects? I have great subjects by taking care of them. They're well dressed. They're well fed. They know how to take care of themselves. They love one another. By this, you'll know that they are my disciples, by the love that they share with one another, the love they have for one another. It also says in Isaiah 60:17, for brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood, brass, and for stone, iron. There are many, many blessings in the scriptures for God's people who are running with God's Spirit and His Word. But there's also that which is not good for those who are going to do wrong. Right now, we're in a position where they want to bring on a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. That way there they can trace you, they can track you, and they can tax you. And then it's going to fall under this governance. Don't fall for it. There are those in Venezuela where they have a new leadership and things were taken over. The people still know how to go out there and find a little piece of gold, shave off a piece, and get a haircut. They know how to barter. 1964, as I was growing up as a kid, I remember seeing the silver coins no longer being silver. I highly encourage you all to get something. Now, first of all, I am not a financial advisor. Go to the Lord on all this. People say, well, gold's going up in value, silver's going up in value. Well, in one perspective it is. In the other perspective, what's happening is the dollar's falling. So we have certain groups of individuals in the world that want to enslave y'all. They want to enslave each and every one of us. They want you to eat bugs. They want you to live in little 15-minute cities. And they want you to own nothing and love it and be happy. I'm just being a realist. I've got billionaires, millionaires, friends in high places and low places. I have the Ancient of Days, and he is showing me a lot of things that are coming down the pipe. I salute you all for being here once again. But when this right here, this one little ounce used to be $200 when I was a kid, then watch it go to $400, then $600, then $800, then $1,600. Now it's pushing over, it's going up to $3,000. It came down to like $2,300 yesterday. But when you have silver, when it comes out of the ground, depends on your report, it's going to be like 11 to 13 to 1. So 11 ounces of this, maybe 13 ounces to 1 ounce of silver. And right now, the price is so smashed that it's running like 88 to 1. In other words, it takes 88 of those rounds to equal 1 ounce of gold. It's manipulated. If you have IRAs, self-directed IRAs, yes, you can put that in custodial. That can be put there. But like your paper ETFs, they're derivatives. Right now on the ETFs, there depends on which report you read. I may have an ETF that says I have an ounce of gold, but there's 366 more of them out there. It's going to be a Bernie Madoff when people wake up. There's not enough, and then the price is going to go beyond to where there will be no more spot price. It's whatever you can barter for. But I want to encourage you all. Y'all have trades. Y'all have skills. Learn something. Have more than enough to be able to barter and to help other people, because that's what it's coming down to. Lone Rangers aren't going to make it. A Lone Ranger is going to end up as fertilizer for the feed out there somewhere. But there are good, reputable people out there that you can get products from. There's ST Bullion. There's Miles Franklin, where I get mine. And there are others that are well known, like Ampex. But I will tell you this. The latter one, I've ended up paying way too much for. I call up people at Miles Franklin. I know the owner of Miles Franklin, and I can get a really good deal. When I say good deal, I don't mean call up these companies that say, well, you're going to have a premium coin. This is going to go up in value. Here's a 2-ounce piece of gold. Bullcrap. Go for the metal. That's all you're after is the metal. Now, if you want to get into numismatics, fine. I had numismatics. My dad had numismatics. But you better know how to grade everything. You better know what's a MS-68, what's a MS-70. Are you being fooled? Don't go to places, I mean, y'all do whatever you want to. I will not go to eBay. I will not go to some of these others because there's too many horror stories of it feels like gold. It's got the weight of gold. Yeah, it's gold-plated tungsten. Yeah. Or it's got little, when you look under a magnifying glass, that particular silver round has bubbles in it because it was poured. It's a forgery. There's too many forgeries out there. If someone was to get a large stock or if they're concerned, I do have an analyzer, but I can't recommend that to anybody unless you're going to be a big investor and you're putting a bunch of money away, that you have that type of funds. You can put it away, buy yourself an analyzer. Then you can test everything and make sure that it's pure and that it's real. But the first thing is, people are going to say, well, I can't put gold, I can't put silver in the gas tank. Well, you can't put a dollar bill in the gas tank either. It's a form of barter. You can't eat it, but you can barter with it. So it's coming back down to common horse sense. I mean, back in the days, my grandpa and grandma, they would preserve their meat by using pork lard in a clay crock, no refrigeration. But I just want to encourage you, watch out, educate yourself, and I have a question for y'all. Are you all aware of what a bail-in is? A bank bail-in? You have your homework. This individual knows. Bottom line is, you're making a deposit in the bank right now. You're a lender to a lending institute. It's no longer yours. It's theirs. Ask the people over in, where is it? Overseas in Italy someplace. So bottom line is, watch out. You got $100,000 in the bank, for example. If they do a bail-in, your $100,000 could be valued at $1,000, and you got paper shares in a corporation that has just filed for reorganization. You are pawns and prizes in a war that's outside of time and space. And unfortunately, right here in the physical realm, they want to be pharaohs, and you are their taxpayer. You are their provider. So take care of your family. Take care of what you have. Learn about finances a little bit more when it comes to bail-in. Learn about precious metals. Don't be afraid to stand up. Texas right now has introduced legislation in other states to accept gold and silver as a form of payment. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Give it up for Mr. Mark Kissy. Thank you, Mark. I asked Jackson to put a book screenshot up there for me. Jackson, if you can put that book up there. If you don't have this book, Pirate Money by Kevin Freeman, he is the economic war room guy. He's been talking about basically gold and silver for decades now. He's the guy that worked on getting a bill passed in the last legislative session in Texas to basically use Texas's depository, gold depository, to do what's called transactional gold. What that is a debit card that is tied to gold in the Texas Precious Metals Depository that you can go to any store that takes Visa, MasterCard, or a regular debit card, and you can transact on that card, and it hits your gold reserve account and how much gold you have in your account. And at the Texas Depository, they just keep up with your account balance and how much you have. I'm actually working on getting Kevin Freeman on my Daniel Report podcast to come on. He presented at the Texas State Convention a couple weeks ago. Phenomenal presentation. By the way, his bill last session made it out of committee, out of calendars, was headed to the House floor whenever Dade Phelan decided to, instead of hearing the bill, to impeach Ken Paxton. That's why his bill failed, because they changed the agenda to impeach Ken Paxton, so they didn't have time to hear Kevin's bill. But there's already a lawmaker that's written the bill. It's going to come back up again next year in the 89th session. We need to go down to Austin, y'all, and we need to push for transactional gold, because Texas already has a gold depository. We already have two. I've got gold in one of them. We've already got two depositories in our state. Do you realize that Texas could have its own gold reserve as a state, which would protect our state sovereignty if there is an economic collapse with the federal government? We could operate our own gold depository in the state of Texas. The Constitution only provides for gold and silver as legal tender. That's in the Constitution. So legally, constitutionally, we have the right to have our own gold and silver depository to run our state if the dollar collapses and the government fails. So we need to have transactional gold abilities in Texas. So I hope you'll come with me to Austin next year. That's a hint for some of y'all. Come with me to Austin and let's get this passed. All right, well, last but not least, we have Mark's lovely bride, Anita, who's going to talk about raising chickens. And I said, please don't bring any chickens in the sanctuary because that would not go over well for the cleaning crew. But she did bring some eggs, hallelujah, and I love her eggs. So give it up for Anita Kissy.
Hey there. They call me the egg pimp. So here's good bartering right here. And do you know they're $9 in Sprouts for the kind I have? I only charge $6. So, and I wanted to add to my husband, practicality. If you come into a chunk of money, don't put it in the bank. Is it making money for you? And if things collapse, they're going to take it. Go get some silver. So, I had a chunk of money, it already's gone up. Woohoo! Good news. Okay, so I'm here to talk about chickens. Send more chickens. I am excited because I like my chicks. I was 8 years old. I was raised in the country, so we always had chickens. And it's really good for kids. It's very therapeutic. I name them. Yes, as you can see to the left, that's like, these aren't my actual chickens, but I have one like that on the left. I named her Opal. And then the one on the right, I call her Fancy Pants. So, and then that's an Orpington, and those are Orpingtons. Okay, slow down. All right, so as I say, you can take the country out of the girl, but you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. So if you don't know, newsflash, we've had several hen houses burn. Yes, over the last couple years. And what happened to your egg prices? Right? There is a correlation. China, CHYNA, has bought some of these, and livestock and so forth. So just be aware. You know, there's a cause to every effect. So what type of chickens? Okay, first of all, it is very simple. You can just have 5 chickens. I have 15. All right, really good producers. And they're usually good for a couple years, and then you want to start rotating your flock. So you just have to determine what kind of, what purpose. Do I want them for meat? Do I want them from eggs, or do I want them for both? So the older a chicken gets, the tougher it's going to get for the meat, right? There's certain types, like the Orpingtons, that's a really hardy brand for Texas. They can take the heat. All right, so you want to make sure what type of chickens that you get. So the weather hardy ones are the Brahma, the Orpingtons, and you can click the next one. The Rhode Island Reds, the Easter Eggers, and that's why I have different colored eggs here. Those are Easter Eggers. It's kind of cool. Anyway, do you want to start with babies, or do you want to get them full grown? So if you get babies, believe it or not, you can mail order chickens. My sister's in the audience, but when we were little, my mom, I would be so excited to go to the post office, and there would be chickens and baby chicks waiting for us, and you hear them in the back, beep, beep, beep. I did order a few, I ordered some couple years ago, and the post office waited to call me, and they get them in this little tiny box. I was so mad. There was 1 or 2, and they were dead. And I was like, seriously? So just be aware of that, but there are good companies that you can order them from. You can also go to your feed store, D&L. We're D&Lers. I think Tractor Supply has them. So, right? And oh my gosh, did you see the price of them now? They used to be like $3.25. They're what, $6, $9? I'm like, what? Get some chickens. Even your local farmer. I see them on Facebook too. People are raising them, want to get rid of them. I bought this last batch. They were more full grown. It takes, Bob, how long is it? 6 months
takes about 6 months for the chickens to start laying, so just be aware of that. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Oh, the leghorn's not up there, but the leghorn chicken is more of a meat chicken, so there are specific types of chickens for specific things. Your HOAs, now we don't have an HOA. Don't want one, don't need it if you got responsible neighbors. But, so that's why I can have 15 chickens. But I think it's like, just check your HOA, maybe up to 7. Hens, roosters obviously wake people up. But you can hear in our neighborhood different roosters going up. It's so comforting. It feels like you're not in the city, and then I hear the siren. But anyway, I hear my rooster. So, and the roosters, by the way, are very good watchdogs. So if something goes off, they're out there cackling. They're going off. So they are good. They watch those hens, and it's kind of cool. The colloquialisms, I didn't get into this. Madder than a wet hen, a pecking order. You can see the personalities come out. It's really kind of cool. So anyway, caring for your chickens. So this is smaller. You can see on the side, that's a nesting box. And so the full doors for you to walk in, and the bottom, they roam around, and then they roost at night on the end. Okay? You can go next one. This is a tractor style. So again, they stay in the barn area, and then they're gonna be underneath, and then you just move it around the yard. So they're pooing, so they're adding nutrients to the soil, and they're eating the bugs. They are such good bug eaters. And the next one, and then you can get like something like this, the hotel poop. They call it Excalibur, but I thought it was cute, hotel poop. And on the side is the nesting boxes. I mean, there's all kinds. You can just get really creative, make it fun. My brother has one in Michigan, and he painted different colors, and it's kind of cool. And you can also use like pallets to build a chicken coop, extra anything you have, sheeting, just stuff from construction sites. You can get creative. I want a tiki hut hen house personally. I think they're pretty cool, but anyway, that's mine. And we have a chicken run. So it's like a run, like chicken run, and then it goes to a bigger coop. All right, and so you do have to clean it out, but you can use you use pine, and you can use it for your garden. You can use the poo as fertilizer. So, I mean, it is kind of a full circle thing. And Mark even uses the shells. He'll bake them, and we grind them up and then throw them on your plants. So there's so many different things. I have free roaming. I don't use soy or corn. You got to watch what you put in them is what comes out, and you're going to eat it. So just be aware of that. They eat everything. Growing up, we used to throw them crayfish. That was cool. And they'd be like, they are very cannibalistic. But that was kind of fun to watch, a country kid. But they eat pretty much everything. People ask me, do you feed them chicken? No, I try not to, but sometimes Mark does. But I don't really feed them meat, but all kinds of different, your vegetables and so forth. Really good, love it. Love worms and so forth. There are grains, food, obviously. You go to D&L and you get chicken feed. And it's the good food. It used to be like 20, 25. Now it's like 40. Hence, I have to charge for eggs. But there's stuff, depending on what type of chicken, if you start from scratch or whatever, you have to get the little bit of vaccine in there. But you can also buy the vaccines from the feed store. And you get natural stuff too. Just so you know, in the heat, they do need cold water. Very important. Just like you get hot, do you want to drink hot water? They don't either. So the same thing with that. They still need water, all the basics. They need shelter. Chickens are very hardy. You got to protect them from predators. I mean, you got your raccoons, your possums, we've had bobcats. So on our chicken run, we have a net over it because you get the flying predators. You'd be surprised. One day I had a cute little silkie. They were smaller, and one day she was gone. I was like, no, and there's feathers left. She had gotten out, and so some hawk or osprey got her. But let's see, what else? Egg boxes. Oh, other benefits. You can freeze dry eggs. So there's a freeze drying thing. Mark just did a bunch for us. You can sell them. Like I said, therapeutic, poo for fertilizer, and they eat bugs. Just make sure if you do have any animals that you also want to store up food for them and water. You want to have those supplies, okay? I think that's pretty much, I covered it. Oh, another thing, eggs have a lot of really good nutrients in them. And Mark even just learned that there's certain properties in them that protect us from certain COVID-related things. So there you have that. And by the way, over there is some more products you can look at, but your chicken coop needs a really bright light, and then they can do the disco or something. But anyway, but there's some more products over there if you want to look at. I know Sandra brought a go bag. So just so you know. Okay. Oops. Costco, $20.
All right, give it up for Anita. Awesome, awesome. So what are you waiting for? Get to clucking, okay? All right, so we have just a few minutes for questions, and if we don't get to all the questions, I'm gonna have the presenters stand behind these tables up here when we dismiss. You're welcome to come up here and look at their items and ask them personal questions. Presenters, why don't you go ahead and come on up here so that if I get a question I don't know the answer to, I can give you the mic. We did have one question from the online audience for Wayne. This is an old school girl. She said, what about old school CB radios?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great question. There are a couple different radio services out here that aren't represented up here, CB being one, MERS being another. CB, I think, is, to Brandon's point, it's a little bit older of a service. What I have read is that GMRS is replacing CB for a lot of folks that are using it. So for off-roading and things like that, just because the GMRS allows for more power. CB, I think the maximum is 4 watts of power, whereas GMRS, the maximum is 50 watts of power. And so I think GMRS is replacing CB for a lot of functions. But CB, great option. That's what you would normally think of in a big rig. I believe a lot of those folks are migrating to GMRS, though MERS is another one where I don't think you need a license. Both of those are more lower power options where this, like I said, 50 watts, and then ham radio is 1,500 watts. So.
Okay, so we have a mic for the audience. Anita, will you run this around for me? Sure. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. We have a couple of minutes here. Go ahead. We'll start in the front, work our way to the back.
For Anita, that disco light, is that to warm them in the winter?
That's just a lamp, but I didn't touch on the heating. When you have babies, you will want a heating lamp. Yeah, and when it's cold, they do need a heating lamp.
Okay, they're like battery operated, the lamps?
Well, propane or, plug in.
Okay, you want to run the mic for me? Thank you, Anita. Okay, next question. Go ahead.
We just wanted to ask Anita, how long will the eggs last in the refrigerator?
Oh, I forgot to say that. So if the eggs are not refrigerated from the beginning, they will last like 6 to 8 weeks on your counter. Once you refrigerate them, they'll last 6 longer weeks. But once you refrigerate them, you have to keep them refrigerated.
Good question. Next question.
Another egg question. How do you prepare the dried eggshells? Because I have a ton of them. Some people have said to put them in the oven, and then the other one, I'm going to be chicken sitting. How do you keep them cold with cold water, like a block or ice cubes or what?
Short version, you just take the eggs. Once you take the eggs out, of course, you got just the shells. I cook them at 150 to 200 until they're well done. And then on a cookie sheet on parchment paper, I let them cool down, then I put them in a blender and turn them into a fine powder for blossom end rot, things like that in my garden, vegetables. Well, they're going to get stinky. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Wanted to ask, talking about the mylar bag, what was that inexpensive way to seal the mylar bag? Oh.
Yep, that's a great question. What I use is my wife's straight iron. I took her old one. I think they're like 10 or 15 bucks. And you turn them up to about 380 or 400 degrees or so. And that will seal these bags without melting through them. So great option there.
Great question. Next question, Brad.
Yeah, this would be a question for Mark. I'm asking for a friend. Let's say you got $10,000 cash laying around your safe, and you want to trade it for gold. Isn't there some kind of rules or regulation on the quantity, or the government watching that?
No. The government watch on when you go to sell it if it's over $500, but I can put you in touch with Justin with Miles Franklin. He can give you better ideas as to how to do things. But I mean, yeah, anything can be done. I mean, I got a client who did $1 million or more.
Next question. We'll come back to you. Hold on, we're double dipping. Let's get one question over here, and then we'll come back. Question on this side. Two questions on this side. Whoops, sorry. We got the hand in the back and then the hand in the front real quick.
Okay, this is kind of a double question. So somebody works for J.P. Morgan up there as a financial analyst. I like that. And then the gold guy. So if you have investments with J.P. Morgan, and then you have the gold, I mean, you can't do all that. And I mean, what do you do, honestly?
You talk to Carla Sheave, who is a financial advisor, and she will get you invested in the right
is.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what I've done, can I talk for you, Carla, since you're not giving legal advice? I'm not an investment advisor, but she's licensed. I'm not licensed, but she put me in Granite shares for my retirement, which is a gold. Not everything. No. I'm in bonds and different things, but I also have physical gold and silver. I'm not giving you my address, but I got it at home in my safe next to my 40 caliber Smith & Wesson M&P. And then I've also got, you're like, this pastor, he's crazy. Yes, I am crazy. And then I've also got gold and silver in the Texas Precious Metals Depository that I can't touch until I'm 65 years old. But it's an IRA. It's physical that I bought from Miles Franklin, had it shipped through my broker, which is Gold Star is my trust company, Gold Star Trust. You have to do it through a trust, and then my trust company deposits it into the Texas Precious Metal Depository, and then when I'm 65, I can touch that physical gold and silver. So to recap, I have physical gold and silver in a vault that can't be breached. I've got gold and silver at home next to my gun, and then I've got shares that are in a gold share type deal that's very safe and secure that Carla put me in. That's also my retirement's in that as well. So that's how I diversify. So, and then if you want investment advice, Carla would be great.
So let me just comment. I won't comment on anything related to my employment, and I'm not representing them here, so I'm here on behalf of Kingdom Life, to be clear. But a lot of talk about money and financial well-being, and the one thing that I will say on that is that, look, if you're a citizen of the Kingdom of Heaven, and if you're following the rules and how the Lord tells us to manage our money, if you're tithing, if you're giving, right, then you can rely on the Lord and you can trust the Lord to preserve you financially, right? And so the one thing I will say above all else, and we can talk about gold, we can talk about silver, we can talk about 401ks, we can talk about financial collapse, and we can talk about rules and regulations in banking and the World Economic Forum and thousands of different things. But at the end of the day, as citizens of the Kingdom of Heaven, as children of the Father, He gives us the ability and the right to bring our finances to Him and trust in Him, right? And so number one thing, are you tithing? Are you abiding by His laws and bringing your wealth and what you have into the storehouse? And are you allowing Him to teach you about giving and to teach you about how His economy works? Brandon's done a lot of talking on it. I think Clay Nash has done a lot of talking on this. And in my mind, that should be your first and foremost, and then come to God and say, how should I think about my finances now that I'm operating in the kingdom of economy?
Very good, Wayne. And yes, we operate out of a supernatural economy as Christians, God's economy. We had a question over here. Go ahead. Wait, one behind you, Caleb. Microphone.
Oh, sorry. It's for Carla.
Carla.
What all goes in a bucket for healthy soil? It's not just dirt. What else goes in there?
So some type of fertilizer. We've got animals, so I can put manure in there. But for the smaller containers like this would be all the potting soil. And so try to buy it on sale, but buy a good quality potting soil for your little stuff and at least have that on the top. But in the bottom, say this, and I can't remember, this might be all potting soil, but we can put manure in the bottom, some real dirt that you're able to dig up, but potting soil on the top, because then they get a good start that way, and it's very porous soil, and so it's an easy start if you got a really young plant or for seeds. Expense. So the expense, yeah, because a bag of the Miracle Grow potting soil on sale might be like $18, which just frustrates me that they charge that much for it. So it just depends kind of on what you have available. But yeah, for the smaller pots, yeah, I don't feel bad about putting all potting soil in there, but it's just so expensive. No, I mean, I'm starting to use coffee grounds more because we have a lot of those at our house, and we do grill a lot, so sometimes I'll try charcoal. So it's just, I'll look online a lot for advice on stuff, on additives. But a good potting soil is something that at least is always on top, depending on how big the container is that I'm using. But look for bargains.
I would just add too, I learned from a master gardener years ago, and this will feed plants any kind, whether it's flowers or food or whatever. Cottonseed meal comes in a bag, and you just like throw a handful in it, and it feeds pretty much everything. There's not a lot of guesswork to it, and you feed it every 6 months. So it's not.
Where do you get that?
It's just at any place. Cottonseed meal. Yep. Well, I know they'll have it at Lowe's or wherever. Yeah, I've seen Callaway's. Yeah, anywhere.
Okay, we got time for 2 more questions, then we have to wrap up. So Caleb, I think, has a question.
So I love Miss Anita chickens and the coop and the all of these stuff and hotels poops, and I really understand and a lot animals to her. So I am gonna tell you, I miss Anita so much, and her heart and my mom and my heart to her. So, and I really extreme a blessing to her. Thank you. And so I want to figure her stuff, and that's good. So I'm gonna wish you thank you and all your stuff, and I want to thank you, my mom and Carla, about her stuff, and to you. I love Brian and Doug and Mark and
I feel like we're getting a scorecard here. We're getting we got a 10, a 10, a 9, a 8, a 7, a 10. No, I'm just messing with you. So thank you, Caleb. Give Caleb a big God bless. That's awesome, man. We love you, Caleb. Thank you for Caleb is also always the positive feedback guy in our church. He's always the positive, Mr. Positive. I love Caleb. Okay, one last question. I think we're competing between Sonia and, it was her. Okay, go with her. All right. You answered yours. Okay, last question, then we have to wrap. Okay, what's the last question?
Well, I'm reading about the potential for another really, really bad hurricane or tornadoes. And I'm wondering if we have physical assets, how do we protect it if our sometimes houses get decimated. And I hope it never happens here again. But what do we do with our physical assets, like you were talking about?
As far as your like electronics and your things inside the house, or your cars, or your house itself, or which physical
The
assets?
houses are getting decimated by tornadoes.
Right.
They're talking about a huge span of tornadoes about a week or two before the election. And I'm just wondering, if I want to prepare for that, what do we do with our physical assets?
I think that's a good week to take a vacation. I think we should probably be gone that week that the tornadoes are coming. But, there's nothing that you can do, I don't think, in the natural to prevent a tornado from hitting your house. Prayer is obviously all you can do. And I will say this, 2 weeks ago when we had that bad string of tornadoes that came through Salina and decimated so many houses, we were in the closet like everybody else at 11:30 at night with all 4 of our kids. And my oldest daughter was just really emotional and upset about the whole thing. And so I just took my kids by the hands and I said, you know what, we're taking authority over this right now. We have authority in the name of Jesus. This tornado will not touch our house. And you know that tornado went south of where we live, missed us completely, and missed Bucky's. Glory to God. I prayed for the beaver, and God spared the beaver, my favorite mascot. So I just want to say, and when we came out of the closet, my oldest daughter, who's 13, she looked at me, she says, Dad, she goes, I should have never have doubted the authority of God. And you know what? We have authority in God against natural disasters. Jesus calmed the storm and he calmed the waves. So my answer to that is, when it comes to tornadoes and hurricanes, take authority over the darn thing and plead the blood of Jesus over your house.
I just wanted to say, the church that I went before this one, it imploded, but the pastor had family living up in Oklahoma City, and she prayed and the tornado turned, and they said it has never in the history of tornadoes turned before. Right. And it turned away from her family. Yep. So we absolutely have authority, but we need to pray where we are, because we tried for Houston and Florida, and the people there had to do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so take authority. Okay, guys, I want to thank all of you for your attention today. This has been a great class. This is all available on our YouTube at Daniel Nation PBC. And if you want me to email you the slides, email me at Brandon, BRANDON, at DanielNation.com. No PBC on the email. DanielNation.com for the email. And with that, bless you all. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. Oh, we have basil plants being given away. Don't forget the car generator QR codes up here. If you want to talk to any of the presenters, they're at the tables. God bless.